Well, good evening, everybody. It's the Cryptid Huntress. I'm Jessica Jones. Welcome in to On the Hunt tonight. Happy Saturday, y'all. I have a fantastic show for us tonight, and I have a good friend of mine, Mr. Mark Green, is here in the studio with me tonight. I just got to hang out with his beautiful, sweet wife, Rebecca, as a matter of fact, for just a little bit, and it was a treat, and you guys are in for a treat tonight. We're going to be getting into the area where Mark and Rebecca live. It's called, well, it's over in East Alabama, but he's got a research area or a little place that he lives next to. It's called Creepy Mountain. And I think this might be one of the anniversaries of Mark having some really interesting encounters with some Bigfoot and Dogmen over on his property out at the farmstead, y'all. And so we're going to get into that. Since the last time he's been here, he's had more Dogman encounters out on his farm, and so we're going to get into that tonight. I can't wait. And by the way, if I start to change colors during the show today, I am red as a lobster. You guys can't tell yet, but the front half of my body is red. And I had the pleasure of taking my son out to Blue Ridge, Georgia today, and we spent the afternoon with our friends and our family out there tubing. Let me tell y'all something. This is one of the most underrated things about North Georgia. Y'all, if you can, go tubing up in North Georgia. Now, I'm not saying go to Helen and like get all backed up with the thousands of people in the river. We went up to Toccoa today. The Toccoa River was actually not too bad, y'all. And we got in our peak floats and we floated down that beautiful river. I have a lot of pictures that you guys will never see because we're all in bathing suits. Okay. But anyways, we had a blast, and it's so wonderful to get out into nature. We were keeping an eye out for Bigfoot, by the way, while we were out there. We did not catch any definitive Bigfoots out there, but I think one of my nephews thought he saw one. Okay. And I'm going to leave it at that. But anyways, it was a wonderful day. We had a great time. And yes, highly recommend. I'm going to say a 10 out of 10. It was 10 out of 10 until we ran into a whole bunch of other, I was going to call them floaters, tubers out there. And then it got a little crowded, and then it went down to a 9.5 out of 10. Okay. But anyways, it was a wonderful time. And I hope you guys go and do it yourself one day. Okay. But for now, we have a fantastic, absolutely incredible show for y'all tonight. If y'all want to check out my website and stuff and my social media links, please go over to the cryptidhuntress.com and check me out over there. You can find all my shows there. And of course, I have a Patreon, and I have a shop over on Etsy if y'all want to support the Cryptid Huntress over there. I appreciate y'all so much. Okay, well, let's get to our show tonight, y'all. Let's do this. Okay, so tonight we're going on the hunt with Mark Green to discuss his Bigfoot and Dogman and other weird stuff encounters in East Alabama. The Greens are from the southernmost point of the Appalachian Mountains in central Alabama. Mark had a sighting in 2007 in Lowndes County, Alabama, which turned into a life of research and investigations into the Bigfoot phenomenon. Now, with his eyes wide open on the subject, he slowly discovered there was a group inhabiting his hunting lease called Creepy Mountain. In 2022, Mark and his wife, Rebecca, started a YouTube channel, Cedar Creek Bottoms Farmstead Life. The channel is all about homesteading, farming, and discussing Bigfoot experiences in Alabama and across the United States. And of course, it's down here on the ticker. And thank you to all of my moderators for being here tonight. I know you guys will be putting the links in the chat tonight. And y'all, please go over and subscribe to Cedar Creek Bottoms Farmstead Live on YouTube. They have a wonderful live every Friday night. And it's a pleasure to get to be there and hang out with people in the chat. And so please help me welcome to the show, Mr. Mark Green. Hey, Mark.
How y'all doing tonight? I hope his internet don't keep going in and out. I was like, Lord, it's going to be a rough night for that. So,
oh, man. No apology needed, Mark. It'll be just fine, okay? And I told you, listen, if it goes out, I'll improvise. It'll be okay. It happens all the time. Can't help it.
I think when those storms came through here, it may have messed, I don't know what it messed up. It just messed something up around here or something. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We've been having a lot of storms. The storms have been rolling in. I know I live just east of you. I mean, literally just east of you. And all the storms hit you first, and then they come over to where I live. And so I get the same storms you get, pretty much. And they've been pretty rough lately. We've had some rough ones. It's been hot. It's been humid. It's been miserable. and it's been rainy at night.
Maybe I'm back again. Maybe this will calm down here in a minute. I know I appreciate you having me on tonight, and always look forward to it and everything.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Well, you know, you've been on the show a couple of times, and I just really enjoyed having you on, and I've had you on by yourself. I've also had you and Rebecca on, and I really just enjoyed seeing y'all on Friday nights. Over on your channel, Cedar Creek Bottoms Farmstead Life. And you have a wonderful, wonderful group of friends that are there. They're very supportive. Oh, yeah. And I'm glad to call a lot of them my friends as well, Mark.
Right. It's very good people, consider family. And Rebecca always look forward to Friday night. And, everybody in chat. Of course, we always love to see everybody in person when we can. So.
Oh, yeah.
Right now, we're in that time of year where me and her's very busy. And, but we're, pretty soon it'll slow back down. And plus, it'll be fall. And hopefully, be able to get to see people more and, get your fellowship and everything.
Definitely. Well, speaking of that, you and I are both speaking at an event together down in, I guess it's Cornwallis, 1828. We're going to be down there in October. So, everybody, please, the information is on my website. But y'all got to come down and see us. My good friends, Scott and Sheila Granger with Squatch Fishing Outfitters. They're actually from LJ, where I was today. That's where I was up there. It's real squatchy in North Georgia. And they're having that event down in, I think it's kind of South Alabama, Mark, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little more south. It's kind of west of Montgomery, about 40 miles west of Montgomery. So it's over towards
Selma, yeah. It's going to be a nice little drive for me. It's about 3 hours, I think. But it's going to be wonderful. And if you guys want to go camping out there, they do have an expedition you can sign up for. It is something that it's not free, okay, for that. But the town hall that Mark and I will be at is free. Okay, it's a free event. So y'all come on down and come see us on October the 3rd. And there's more information, like I said, on my website. If y'all want to come see us at that.
We'll have a good time out, and I think we'll have a good time. So.
Absolutely. Now we actually, there's a lot of Bigfoots and Dogmen and other stuff in Alabama, Mark. I'm going to say at least a third to a half of my research is out of Alabama. Okay, a lot of it.
Yeah. It is. I think Alabama hasn't really been recognized in the Bigfoot world to the last few years that it's a very hot spot. And I think shows like ours and Woodwalkers and a few others have really gave a spotlight to Alabama that, hey, we're a hot spot, and the whole state. I mean, if you really go to really looking at it, the whole state has Bigfoot sightings. Even Jefferson County, where Birmingham is, has Bigfoot sightings. So it's all over the whole state. state's full of water. There's rivers everywhere, lakes, ponds, creeks, springs. And Alabama is number 3 or 4 in timber in the U.S., the amount of land and timber. So that tells you a lot too. And they call us the Amazon of North America. So a lot of river drainage from different states pile into Alabama. And so, the Appalachians end here. So I believe that's why it makes it a hot spot.
It does. Well, actually, one of my favorite places to go, which is actually in the northeastern corner of Georgia, is the Chattahoochee National Forest, and that is actually designated as an actual rainforest. Okay, it's a rainforest in Georgia.
Yeah.
So full of Bigfoots, by the way, full of Bigfoot. Yeah.
People don't realize the South has a lot of unique stuff that you wouldn't think is here till you really get to digging into it. There's a lot of hidden stuff that is not publicized a whole lot, and you get into some areas and you don't even think you're in Alabama anymore. You think you're out west or somewhere, so it's a different state. It's got a little bit of it all, kind of like Georgia, Mississippi, Tennessee. We got a little bit of it all.
Yeah, swamps, mountains, dry areas, and lots of mountains.
Yeah, a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. Well, that's why there's a little bit of every kind of cryptid. Some of my favorite cryptids come out of Alabama. The Mobile Wolf Woman from the 1970s came out of there, and that was a weird one. But I think that was like a werewolf. And we got the Crichton Leprechaun. I know that's a funny one. Out of, I think that's it's in the Crichton neighborhood. Okay, right. And that, I don't know if that's Mobile or Montgomery. I can't remember.
Yeah, it was around the Mobile area. Or they called her the she-wolf, so they said it was a female. And then, of course, we have the Chockalaka monster that was around Anniston, Alabama. And there's some newspaper articles about that. I think that was back like in the 1930s and 40s. And then you have the white thing that's real popular in Alabama. And then you had the Chilton County peach monster. And then also there was a water monster supposed to be in the Coosa River that was seen from Rome all the way down in here where I live at, back and forth. Now, this was before the dams were built. So I don't know if that had something to do with it. A lot of people thinking people may have been seeing a big old sturgeon because Coosa used to be full of sturgeon. And now Alabama and Georgia went together and have started stocking the sturgeon back into Coosa. So people may have been seeing big, huge sturgeons. I don't know, but that's the ones I know of. Of course, the white thing is the biggest topic in Alabama. You hear more about it than you do anything else as far as cryptids, But the Bigfoot and Dogmen have really come on the scene too. The regular I guess you call regular Bigfoot. If they all regular, I don't really know what you call them, but and then the Dogman has really surfaced in the last few years.
It feels like Dogman came out of nowhere. Because Mark, I've been doing Bigfoot research for a while, almost 2 decades, and we had never come across a Dogman before. And the only thing I really knew about Dogman was through Bob Wilson. Grumpy was the head of my North Georgia cryptid research team, and he was for a period. He was the regional director of like the NADP with the Dogman project. And so everything that I learned about Dogman, I learned from him. And he had definitely found some Dogman-like tracks and stuff in the past. And he knew they were real. But, I'd never really seen one until I got invited out to that hunt camp in Alabama. And I think when I was leaving that camp that night, when I met up with you and all your friends out there, all of our friends, when I was leaving there, I saw something real strange down the road. We've talked about this before on the show, and I believe what I was looking at was most likely a Dogman, maybe 2. and you have had some really pretty intense encounters yourself on your farmstead with these dogmen. It just seems like they've come out full force, like gunslinging
Yeah,
in the
they do.
Bigfoot world.
It kind of caught me off guard. I really wasn't paying attention to Dogman stuff either, and it kind of caught me off guard. But when I got my first report back up, kind of north Talladega County, right there close to I-20, it kind of was an eye-awakening experience. When I talked to my first person about a Dogman, what they seen, and then within 6 months, I had another person contact me. That was Adam. That I done the show. I can't remember the name of it now. Get where I can't remember no more. That ain't a good sign.
Me neither.
What's this called? Something Beauty. Flash of Beauty. Excuse
Flash
me.
of Beauty.
And we talked. Had done that show with them. And Adam, was getting pictures of stuff that had pointed ears and muzzles, and this was within a mile where this other person, before that had gave me a Dogman report. And then I did not realize that in 22, which I'm coming up on the anniversary of that too. In August 22 is when I got the corn patch pictures. And in one of the pictures, there is a figure with pointed ears and a muzzle. Some of the other beans were Bigfoot looking, cone heads, one of them kind of the gorilla looking face. But there is one in there with them that has pointed ears and a muzzle. So, when I used to hear Dogman, I kind of pushed that off to the side. I was thinking maybe people are just misidentifying something. Maybe they're misidentifying the Bigfoot. And then, I come to realize, wait a minute, this stuff is probably true.
Oh yeah, well, I knew it when we were getting a lot of reports coming in, and it wasn't until I started doing podcasting, about 5 years ago, I started seeing how first of all, it's very popular online, and it's almost more popular. I've noticed, when people talk about Dogmen, they get more viewers and stuff watching their shows than Bigfoot. Like we've established Bigfoot's real. Okay, my teams have. We have established we know where they're at. We've even gone as far as communicating with them. Okay, and things like that. And so we're far into the research with Bigfoot. We know those exist. Now the Dogman is something kind of new. And that's what sparked my interest. I've kind of been on, I don't want to say a quest to really dive into the Dogman phenomenon and to get out in the woods. I've taken 3 trips to the LBL in the past 3 months, Mark.
Well, I'm glad you got to visit that place, and that's a unique place of its own. It has a vibe to it. Rebecca said it has a good vibe in places and a bad vibe in places. And I do believe that's true. We went to one cemetery one night, and we were getting bad vibes in that area. Come to find out that it is the area not too far from where Joe and Pat caught that that thermal with Bud and Angie several years ago. That them 2 spots were very close together. There's other people, Mr. Bart Nunley, Mark Groves. I can name a bunch of people that have seen stuff up there, and others. There's tons of other people that have seen dog-looking type men. Of course, the Bigfoot have been seen too. And sometimes I wonder, us talking about it on the shows brought it on more, or maybe it's just like Bigfoot. People are starting to willing to talk about it. Not too many people really want to talk about an upright canine walking around, and that throws us off because we're not used to that as humans. Now going back in history, there's tons to talk about them, and so have their populations grown? like the Bigfoot kind of have maybe grown, or people are more willing to talk about what they're seeing now, and that's why we're hearing more about it. So that's kind of the way I look at it. I mean, it's hard to say, but yeah, I think it's something that more and more people are going to talk about, and I think they run together. I think sometimes they run together.
Yeah.
I mean, my cold patch pictures kind of proved that to me, and I've heard other people say, yeah, they do hang out together. So then again, they may fight at times too. It's hard to say, but there have been tales of them fighting each other. So, and that could be a territory thing, or one of them got out of line, and I mean, you don't never know. It's like us. Somebody gets out of line, the rest of us jump on them real quick, or we would, and straighten them out real quick. Excuse me for coughing.
Yeah. Well, that and I had my buddy Bruce Brown has been on the show several times, and Bruce was talking about watching. We're talking about dogmen fighting and people seeing dogmen in brawls and like fighting each other and stuff. And I've had reports of that. I had my friend David Pardue out of North Carolina came on and was talking about a report that he knew of a sheriff's deputy who had taken a call, and it was driving down a dirt road up in North Carolina and came across what he thought were men fighting in the road, but then he realized when he pulled up they were actually hairy and they had the faces of dogs, is what he said. Their faces look like dogs, and so we're trying. I kind of dove into that topic a little bit, and we're trying to figure out like why would they be fighting other than like territory and stuff. But Bruce was like, mating and stuff too, because they look human like, but they're also canine as well, and they're something otherworldly in my opinion. Right. Okay, but it could be that as well, fighting over females and all that.
Could have been territory. I mean, it could have been an alpha and one trying to become an alpha.
Initiation.
I think it happens something in the Bigfoot too, that maybe an alpha gets older, he's getting where he's not as strong, and another one will try to take his place. I mean, we don't know all this for 100% fact, because we base that on the animal kingdom with how animals do. And that's the only thing we really have it to base it on right now. But I mean, even us humans do that. You'll have alpha people, and then you'll have other people try to come buck them sometimes. And, I mean, so it's I guess the law of nature, So,
yeah.
But it is a fascinating subject. I've tried to wrap my head around it, just like I did with the Bigfoot. I always tell everybody I do lean toward a biblical thinking on this. I know sometimes that people don't like it when I say that, but that's my opinion. I do kind of lean toward the Bible on this, because it did say as you get closer to the end of time, we're going to start seeing things that will make men's hearts fail them and be fearful. Now, that can mean a lot of different things. I mean, that could be natural disasters or pestilence or disease, or a lot of things like that. But also, I've got a gut feeling this is going to play in with some of that too, this cryptid stuff. Not all of it, maybe, but some of it,
Mm-hmm.
And even with the UFO stuff,
Mark, I agree with you 100%. And I feel like sometimes I've been, because I never meant to be public about this. I didn't want to talk about my Bigfoot research with the world. I never had any intention of doing that. And I feel like I've kind of been called, just as you have been called, to talk about this, to help other people with their encounters and to understand it and not be, I want to say not be so scared about it, and to kind of unpack our experiences, and to let the world know, if you watch YouTube, you think that Dogman's attacking everybody all the time, and it depending upon what channels you watch. Okay, but honestly, with the amount of interviews that I've done and the reports that we've taken, they're not generally violent like that. The
No,
Dogmen are not.
what I have seen, and I have not ever interviewed anybody that was actually attacked that I can. Now I know some has been rocked real hard, like by Bigfoot. You know, I mean, Bigfoot was trying to hit them or trying to run them off, throwing tree limbs at them. I'm talking about big limbs, you know, stuff trying to hurt them. But 90% of the time, what I've always had happen is they throw the little pebbles, they throw the little sticks. They might break off some limbs, make some racket, you know. Maybe try to buffalo you. I call it buffaloing you out, what they're trying to do. I think if they really wanted to hurt people, they're very capable of that. And there's probably no telling how many people that, you know, they could hurt. They've probably had millions of chances, and they don't. Now, is something holding them back from doing that? I mean, there's some theories on that. Or are they just not all of them are mean? I think it's like humans. You have your good humans who try to leave everybody alone, try to do what they're supposed to, and then you have ones that go against the grain on everything and cause trouble. You know, so, I mean, you know, that's the way I put. You know, think about it. So, you know, I may be wrong. I might find out wrong, and if I am, you know, I'll sure admit it. So. A lot where we're going to have this Cornwallis town hall meeting coming up in October. Of course, is not far from there is where I had my first sighting of, you know, a Bigfoot, the Lowndes County Wildlife Management area, and I have kind of paid it. I keep pay attention to that area because I kind of like that area. I love going down in there because it's kind of old style South. And what I mean by that, the antebellum homes, the Spanish malls, it's kind of done got into the Gulf Plains. So it looks real old. The churches built like in the 1820s, 30s. It's just real old. There's still a lot of old buildings, old store buildings. So it's kind of like almost stepping back in time, you know, 67 years, you know. So, but when you get down in that area, you start really seeing how rural it is and how far people live apart in there, and how you know, it's just a different. It's kind of like when you probably go to South Georgia, a lot of the antebellum homes are, and the big pecan orchards. You start getting way out in there, you know, you start seeing what I call the old South.
Mm-hmm.
Just has a vibe to it, you know. I mean, and I won't say a good vibe. I don't get a bad vibe down there, but I have paid attention to see if any Dogman reports are coming from that area. So far, I haven't seen it, but now there was a lady that I used to talk to. Some of the people in this chat know who I'm talking about, Miss Elisa. She passed away last year. Now, she told me on the other side of the Alabama River, the Selma side, back up into Talladega County, which is where Prattville and all that is, which kind of be on the north side of the river. Then the river does just 90 in that south, and down that side of the river, she was getting reports of Dogmen. And in fact, she had them on her property on that side of the river, man. And me and her did do some talking about that. And I asked her, I said, well, what about on the Lowndes County or toward Montgomery in that area? She said, I haven't heard of nothing on that side. She said, all the Dogmen stuff I have heard on my side of the river, you know, which west, north, west side of the river. She said there was an old state park that Alabama closed down years ago. People kind of stayed away from it because it was a dumping ground for bodies. I hate to say that. That's where a lot of people were. When they were murdered, people would go dump them on this old place. But she used to go in there walking a little bit. Roads are still paved in there. Of course, they're growing up. And of course, they got a gate, but she would park and walk in. And, hey, Patrick, good to see you, bro. Good to see Gary. robbing a lot of folks. For some reason my chat's not working. I don't know what's going on with my comments tonight, but anyway, she told me there was a lot of Dogman reportings, and she went into this state park one day just walking. She said she got in there about a half a mile. It's real swampy ground. A lot of old campsites. She could still see the old campsites where, campers could hook up. And she heard a limb snap. And she turned and looked, and she said she was looking right at a dog man looking at her. She said probably within 40 to 50 foot of her. I mean, very close. It was just staring at her. She could see the pointed ears, the muzzle. She said probably around 7 foot tall. Before she done an about face and started walking back toward her car, it paralleled her going back. It never stepped out the road. It stayed in the woods. But she said it never growled. It never made any aggressive moves. It just kind of stayed pace with her walking. And she got back to her car. It didn't try to bother her. So on that side of the river, that there is some sightings. And she told me some other people who had witnessed stuff over the years. Now, let me say this, what she told me about that area, too. She said that area had a lot of witchcraft, voodoo stuff going on. A lot of that in that area. She said she see the signs a lot. So I don't know if that has something to do with that or not.
It does.
Kind of a rough.
Mark. I think so. I think 100% it does. That's what I think. I've looked into that wolf woman of Mobile, Alabama. I 100% believe that was some sort of like a Rougarou situation. I think that was a shapeshifter. I think that had something to do with black magic. That's what I think. And I think there's a lot of that down here. Talk about the South, especially down on the Gulf and even on the Atlantic side. I mean, we got that down in South Georgia too. It's just a rich history of like hoodoo and voodoo and things like that going on down there. So
she said that she knew of a lot of people that were playing with that stuff, voodoo, witchcraft. In fact, one of her neighbors pretty close was very involved in it. He had animals hanging up in the trees. She confronted him a couple of times because she had some animals go missing, and she wasn't scared. She went right down there and confronted him. And, she seen all the stuff on the house. She said cars going in and out of there all the time, and she said she knew there was something going on. And then they find, like I said, that part of Alabama, you don't hear much about it on the regular news, but that part of Alabama has a lot of people end up being murdered and stuff. So it's they call one road down there Dead Man Road because of many people that's been found there, So in fact, she came across a body one time. So just a very, and you can tell when you cross that river out of Lowndes County into Dallas County where Selma is, you get a different vibe there. You can tell when you cross that river, there's a different vibe. And Selma used to be a very beautiful city. It was another southern town, with the magnolias and the live oaks, with the Spanish moss and the old buildings. But it's really has changed a lot in the last few years. It's really went downhill. The industry has left there, a lot of the industry, and so it's not like it used to be. It used to be where the richer people of Alabama lived at one time, but now it's not that way. So there's a lot on that side of the river. So hopefully, maybe while we're doing the town hall, if people want to get out and ride around, go to some places, that'd be one place to go. They have a big cemetery over in Selma. It's very old. In fact, a couple of Alabama governors are buried there, and Alabama's only vice president's buried there. Alabama's only had one vice president. That was like back in the 1800s. And he's buried in that cemetery. And they give tours of that cemetery. And I think in October they do the night walks in there. And,
Oh, yeah.
they have a lot of police presence in that area, so that area is kind of a good area to be in. But me and Rebecca done a video on it a year or two ago. We went and walked that cemetery. She was getting a lot of vibes in there while she was in there. She was really feeling a lot of stuff while we were in there. So that's just the old part of Alabama, the old South, plantation house, what you see in the picture, Magnolia, live oaks, and just old South.
Oh yeah, those are some of the best places to go research. I used to live down near Savannah, and late at night sometimes we would go and I'm going to say frolic through the cemeteries late at night and stuff, just for fun, and stuff. And it was a little creepy down there. Okay, down in Savannah, that's a whole different ballgame. Okay, but
Savannah's a very old town. That's what, early 1700s, I think.
It's old.
Yeah, them in Charleston. That's very, very old. Like St. Augustine and some of those there. That's some very old areas in there. So very beautiful. Savannah, Charleston.
Oh yeah,
very beautiful areas.
It is. Well, you had mentioned something about a body dumping ground, and just to kind of highlight that information, because there's a place called Brown Springs. That's where Pops Gary lives up that way, and Brown Springs, I guess that's Oklahoma. It's right there near Texas, actually. And I've always heard about that. Back when I had a show over on Texas Front Porch and stuff, Tex used to go there, and he would tell me about it. He said it was kind of I think the mob or somebody, like some kind of cartel or something, would dump bodies there. And that's an area of very high strangeness. It's really funny that we're bringing this up because today we crossed over the Chattahoochee in Atlanta. And in Atlanta, well, I was telling my son as we drove over it this morning, it was really early. We were headed up to North Georgia, and honestly, sometimes driving through Atlanta with the traffic, it sucks the fun out of everything. Okay, he's like, we'll have a great day, and then we have to get stuck in Atlanta traffic coming home. But anyways, we were crossing over the Chattahoochee right downtown in Atlanta, and I was like, oh yeah, that's where. I kind of was joking around with him, but I was being serious. I was like, that's where people throw the bodies. I'm just trying to keep my son occupied. So he was like, well, who on earth would throw bodies in there? I was like, the criminals, people who hurt people, but it is kind of a thing, back in the day when I was growing up, we used to hear about bodies in the Chattahoochee and stuff. And it kind of sucks. Okay. It's actually quite beautiful upstream. Okay. But
it's a very beautiful river. And further downstream is a beautiful river. You get on down toward I guess in there past Franklin and Newman and all down in there. That's a beautiful river. It gets back beautiful. And yeah, I've heard a lot of people refer to the Chattahoochee as Murder River. I've heard that.
Unfortunately.
Now you're talking about Dogmen. I've heard a lot of reports up down at Chattahoochee about Dogmen, especially when you get kind of down where it gets on the Alabama-Georgia line there, I guess about West Point, Georgia. Especially when you get down to where Dothan is, right across, in Alabama, and
South.
Georgia, Alabama, Florida all kind of meet up. And I've heard tons of, Bigfoot, Dogman reports there, but also that's where my friend that lived in South Alabama grew up, that he talked about the bear men that would come through ever so often. The Bigfoot that were on their property would leave during that time. And they wasn't far from the Chattahoochee. I think he told me they were 20 miles from the Chattahoochee. And he said, they always believed that these bear men looking things were probably coming from the Chattahoochee area, Chattahoochee River bottoms. And, and if you go back and look about it, I didn't realize there's a lot of people go missing down in that part of Alabama, Georgia, Florida, right in there. is a
Mark,
high percentage.
yes, Mark, that's one of my research areas. Okay,
Yeah.
right there is actually that's called the troop herd corridor. I talk about it all the time, and it's not to give I don't give locations away and stuff, but I'm just saying that's one of the places where I've gone for many years down there researching. There's a gentleman who wrote a book. I don't remember his name, Jonathan somebody, I think, but he wrote a book. He's the one who coined that term, the troop herd corridor, because he was actually doing research in investigating all the mass alien abductions that were happening along that corridor right there, exactly where you're talking about, where all the Dogman sightings are, Bigfoots. I mean, that's where my son saw his first Bigfoot, Mark.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I've heard tons of stuff around West Point.
Yeah.
That's a big old lake. West Point Lake's huge, and it's right there close to Auburn and Opelika. On that side of Alabama. And I've heard, I don't know how many reports have come about Bigfoot and Dogmen in that area. And you are correct. I've heard a lot about UFO activity up down that corridor. Now, sometimes some people say, well, that's Fort Bennett. They may be flying stuff, which could be possible. I mean, I'm not going to say it ain't, but, so there's a lot going on in that corridor there. And of course, Chattahoochee starts way up. Well, I think it actually starts in North Carolina, don't it? And then comes on down into North Georgia.
It definitely comes from North Georgia. It must start in, I'm not sure, but you're probably right. You're probably right. It comes down from North Georgia for sure.
I think, I won't say, I may be wrong on that. I think I read the headwaters actually started right there around Murphy, somewhere around Murphy, somewhere back in there, I think. But there's probably tons of streams feeding it through there off in the mountains. But so that's a long river basin. Just I mean, it's coming all the way through Georgia, then hitting the Alabama line, and midway, and then going all the way to the ocean, and it runs right in through a national forest in Georgia. I mean, Florida. It's very huge. And I had a friend that done a lot of research in that national forest, and he was seeing dogmen in that national forest. And in fact, he's been up here a few times. Camped out with us in Talladega National Forest, and me and him had a lot of talking about that. And he said that area in there had a lot of dogmen reports, and he actually seen one when himself finally one time. And so that whole corridor. Sometimes you begin to wonder if they do have these areas that they travel, and then maybe they get off of them, veer off of them, maybe looking for a mate, maybe looking for better habitat, or whatever, maybe better food. I mean, it's hard to say. I believe some of them do have travel paths that they use, and of course, Talladega National Forest has had its share of some dogmen reporting. That's where you seen what you seen. Bankhead. Greg, House can tell you a lot more about Bankhead.
I've investigated Bankhead, Mark. That's where I hiked in actually, and I didn't give the location away. I still won't give the location away, but I didn't tell anybody where I was. But people started figuring it out, and it was over at Bankhead, and that's where we hiked in 5-6 miles. I think it was like 5 miles into the woods, and I slept in a hammock in the middle of the woods looking for a dogman. We were investigating a dogman report from some of the guys that were with us. And it was wild. We ended up having some Bigfoot activity, but not dogmen. But I think they're just really aggressive Bigfoots out there too. I think.
According to Greg, what I've heard, with Greg talking and Bama Murdoch and of course Kumbo, because them three are very familiar with Bankhead. And of course, there's a few other people that are too. They do seem to be a little more on the aggressive side at Bankhead. And Greg has heard of several dogman sightings from the Bankhead. There was a couple, I think they were arrowhead hunting. I may be misquoting. And but he said they were on old road or something. They'd been clear cutting in there, and the guy was walking that old road looking for arrowheads. And I think it was getting dark. They started coming out, and I think they got in their truck, was coming out. These two canine-looking things were standing in the road looking at them, on their way out. And I think the guy actually personally talked to Greg. Now, I may be telling this I may have it off, but I think that's what I remember Greg saying. And then Kumbo said some of the first reports that he ever took, he thought were Bigfoot, but after years of studying on it, he went back and talked to those people. And come to find out, they may actually be dealing with Dogmen, and this is in the Tennessee River area of North Alabama. And then, of course, Lord, I can't remember her name. She's from North Alabama, had a podcast. Shoot, I can't remember. That's why I can't remember names, but she said her mother and father had Dogmen on their property, and Kumbo went over and met with her and went into that property, and Kumbo said yes. He said they were definitely on that property because he seen one while they were in there on that property. I'll think of her name here in a minute. She had a podcast for a while. I can't remember the name of it. Saved my life right now, but.
Mark, I just wanted to say, like, whenever you go to like the BFRO website, bfro.net, and you can type in and click on each state in the United States, and it takes you to that state, and then it gives you all the counties in that state, and then you can click on all the reports out of these counties. I started noticing, especially in Georgia, a lot of the reports that I'm looking at in these counties around where I live over here in West Georgia, up in Rome, especially up in Rome, they're actually Dogmen. They're not Bigfoots, and you go into there, and it's kind of funny because, like, you used to hear about like how BFRO wouldn't include things that aren't Bigfoot, in there. But there's and some of these reports were taken by my teammates on my research teams out in the field, and so it's pretty amazing. I actually really appreciate that they put those reports in there. But and some of these are kind of older reports, Mark, but they're actually they sound like Dogmen and werewolves.
Right. Yeah. When I read it, I try to pay attention a lot to Georgia with sightings, and one thing I did notice on the BFRO was when I looked at it that time, I said, "Oh, gracious!" I said, most of the reports, like you just said, they're coming out of Polk, Floyd.
That's Rome.
Right. I can't remember that county you was from.
Paulding. Yeah, that's where I grew up.
That little area right there, and then going right back toward Alabama in Cleveland County and Cherokee County, and those little areas right there had a high percentage of, you would think the sightings would be in South Georgia with all the swamp land and all that. It was that area of Georgia, northwest Georgia, that almost had the most sightings. North Georgia was right there with it, but I noticed that right off bat, and I said, of course, you got the Coosa River and the Tallapoosa River that's draining out of those two areas. And of course, that Coosa River comes on the west side of me, and the Tallapoosa's on the east side of me. Of course, you got a mountain range right there in the middle, and it's just a perfect funnel for something to travel back and forth. On that mountain range between them two rivers, and it was, and of course, over here on my side in Alabama, Talladega County, Randolph, Clay, Claiborne, Calhoun, Cherokee has a lot of sightings, and a lot of them are not in the BFO. You have to go back and look at all these other researchers that done all their stuff. There was a Mr. McDonald that had the Alabama Bigfoot Society. He's been passed away now for a few years, but he ran that corridor right next to the Georgia line up there. He went to Chambers County, Randolph County, Clay. He come over here to Talladega County a little bit, but he had tons of reports. all kind of tracks. And I remember him saying in one of his videos one time, he said, we got something new we're dealing with too. And he said, it's kind of a canine thing. And, this was one of his videos probably from 2014, 15. I mean, we're talking about over 10 years ago. And I remember him bringing that up, in one of his videos because of some tracks they found on the Tallapoosa River on the sandbar. And they were very big canine tracks. And then I think he got a report of somebody telling them that they seen a dog, walking on two legs. And so it's not nothing new. I think it's just people are paying more attention to it and people are talking more about it and coming out with their, sightings. So that's just like with Kumbo. Years ago, none of us, us in the Bigfoot world were really thinking about Dogmen. And there's probably no telling how many times a lot of us have had an encounter with them and we thought we were dealing with a Bigfoot, but we were maybe dealing with them, So.
Yeah, I think they may get confused and mislabeled and whatever. Whatever I saw leaving out of Talladega National Forest that night when I was with y'all, I could not figure out what I was looking at to save my life. It looked like a hyena. It was like an African dog that was jet black with white teeth. And it was moving like a panther, but it was like a dog, and it was the size of a bear. It was wild. It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen, but it was squatted down on the grass. So it never stood up. So I didn't get to see it stand up. But there was another one across the road from it with its back turned. So like, I still think about that almost every day, Mark. I think about it all the time. And I thought it was really cool because you ended up having an encounter, and you don't live too far from there. What, about 20 miles or so, 20 minutes from where I saw that thing?
Yeah, from where you seen what you seen, my house probably be about 16 miles, give or take. I can be in the national forest in 10 minutes from here. I can be in the west side of it. What was, when you called and told me where you seen this, just struck me very strong because, I have a friend who owns land right in there. And they had been dealing with Bigfoot off and on for years. I wish I could really go deep into what they've told me, but they've asked me not to. But I can kind of skim across the top a little bit. But they had calves go missing at times. Could never find signs of them, finding the footprints. One of his brothers, ladies, I own one. And then another time seen one. So, of course, they were seeing what they said were Bigfoot, and the footprints, were the Bigfoot type prints. But, it's like I go back to what I saw here. That first time in 2022 from the corn patch pictures, when I got to looking at them pictures real well, of course, I was paying attention to what was in the center of the picture. And over here on this side, there was one, with the pointed ears and a muzzle. And I'm going, wait a minute, and it's standing up and pretty tall with the corn too. And we're talking about 8 to 10 foot corn. So whatever this was in the 7-8 foot range. So, like I've told it, a lot of people here, I was bush hogging and doing some disking here last year. And I got, it was a pretty hot day, and this property behind me got clear cut. And, last summer, it really came up. The weeds and stuff really came up. They got up to 6-7 foot tall. I was heading toward that property on my tractor, and there's an opening there, kind of like a hole. And all of a sudden, 2 buck deer, like at 3 o'clock in the evening, it was maybe more about 4, bust out of that wood line, out of that cutover, wide open. And they were coming toward me for a second. I done got nervous. I thought these deer fixing to run over me on the tractor. Then they turned bald face and went to my neighbor's property at a full sprint. And I knew by them doing that, something had spooked them. Well, I was looking at them. And of course the tractor was still moving because I was kind of out in the field, so I wasn't worried about running over anything. And when I looked back in that opening, I seen a figure standing there. And of course that figure was standing back in the cutover in these tall weeds. But, what I seen, had pointed ears and a muzzle look to it. It looked at me for a minute. I looked at it. It turned. It just disappeared back into those tall weeds. Thinking on that for a while, I'm going to say that it was probably the same one or some of his kin or something, offspring or something, that was probably in that corn patch in 2022. I'm thinking that's probably the same bunch that I was seeing. But I got a very good look, at the color, at the ears. And the ears wasn't standing way up. They were kind of more out like, what I seen. But I could definitely see a muzzle. And it didn't give a threatening look to me. It was just like it was staring at me. And once me and it locked eyes, it realized I was looking at it. It just turned easy around and just eased off, And so I wonder, if that's what has been around here, because we found some tracks here around the house that were odd looking. They kind of looked like Bigfoot, but they kind of didn't. And there was one track out here in what we call our front little field. It's half acre where we planted some stuff. I happened to walk out there one day looking at watermelons and corn, and there's a track there. And I really go to looking at this track, and I take several pictures and I post it. I sent it to several people. I said, "Give me your opinion on this footprint that I got a picture of." I had several people come back and say, "That's a Dogman. It's a Dogman print." Because the front was very wide, but at back the heel was very narrow. It was a funny looking track, and I never really seen a track kind of shaped like that. But I had several people. Kumbo was one of them. Kumbo said, "Mark, I think that's a Dogman track." He said, I don't think that's a Bigfoot, because up at the front, and you can go over on my Facebook page, Cedar Creek Bottoms Farmstead chat, and it's in there, pictures of it. I put a lot of my stuff over on that Facebook page. And of course, you can go to a lot of me and Rebecca's videos, and you can find some of the footprints and stuff. But the front of it looked like more like claws than it did toes when you kind of look at it. There's only one print there. It was weird. Of course, we talk about that, how you'll find a print out in the middle of the field, and there's only one or two of them. Like, where'd it go? Did it get up and fly off or what? You can't explain that. But that was the same way. And then we found another set of few tracks out where I planted the big watermelon patch that were canine-ish looking, but they were huge. And I would say bigger than a Great Pyrenees dog. They have big feet on them. You get a full-grown size Pyrenees. They got a big foot on them. These prints were bigger than I would think a Great Pyrenees would have. And you can see where it walked right down the edge of my field. And it had been raining. And, of course, it was stepping in mud. And it walked all the way down the edge of that field. Then it's just like the tracks disappeared. And which we found the same way that with Bigfoot here, the tracks we found that we thought were Bigfoot, it's like they just go a little ways and they just disappear. So, but that was a real, well, the corn patch was, of course, a eye-opening experience. But that day was a real eye-opener to me that these things really do exist. What people are telling you, they're seeing, and sometimes till you see it yourself, it's kind of hard to imagine that. When you lock your eyes on it, I say you have a reality check happen. you figure out, hey, there's more to this world than we know. Trying to get a handle on it is hard to get a handle on it. So, but since then, I have really come to see that these things, these dogmen, do exist. I mean, the campground down at Talladega National Forest has some people seen some stuff there, doing some campouts that were more canine than they were Bigfoot. The reports that I done from North Talladega County, and then seeing stuff here myself, and so yeah, they exist just like the Bigfoot do, and I think they hang out with Bigfoot at times.
I think so too, Mark. So there's a lot going on out at Talladega. Okay, and I know that I've been seeing a lot of posts on TikTok, my trusted news source. I'm just kidding. That's my ongoing joke. I'm just kidding, y'all. Okay, but on TikTok, somehow I'm in the algorithm of seeing these videos where people are highly suspicious of some digging that's been going on in Talladega. Are you familiar with this? There's some kind of digging. People are thinking they're opening up some cold cases. There's some bodies buried out there.
Yes. There's a dig actually active going on. It's kind of more in the western part of the county toward the river. I think the Pale City Police Department, the FBI, and some more have been involved in it. There's a lot of speculation going on with that. There's some cold cases from the 90s and some from the early 2000s. Some people went missing. So that's what they're doing. I don't know if they found anything or not. And they're not talking. And of course, they're not going to talk, because it might jeopardize the investigation. And I'll just be honest with you. A lady who's been giving me Bigfoot reports from around her property lives like a mile from there. So, I've already been down that road before, so I'm very familiar with it. And this is not actually too far from the Dogman reports I took. They're actually probably 4 or 5 miles from that area. So yes, and there was, and I remember this in the 90s, mid 90s, that there were some talk going around that there was a serial killer loose in Talladega County. I mean, we can't prove that, that's actually a fact, but there was a lot of rumors. We had some people down in here around where I live at Silicaga go missing. Never have been found. Same way with some of those people that went missing up there in the north end. So there was a little rumor got to going around. We had a serial killer, which is possible. Then of course may find out later on what none of them related, nobody, But yeah, that's going on. That's been in the news a lot. Everybody's been really talking about that. All the major news channels in Alabama, and I think it's even hit national. I think somebody told me it done hit national. So, and they're doing some digging, boy. They have dug deep. I mean, when you got that big excavator dump trucks coming in, they're doing some digging. And so, but I think the property belonged to a guy. Probably need to watch how I say this because I don't want to spread false information, but kind of what I've heard is the guy was put in prison. Not the one that owns the land now, but who owned it before then, got put in prison for sexual predation. So, and I think some people said that he may have made some deathbed, because I think he passed away. I think he may have made some deathbed confessions, but I don't know that for a fact. You hear all kind of stuff, Facebook, social media, people talking, but you don't really know what the real truth is to that. So,
I mean, I got that from TikTok, Mark.
yeah.
Okay. I got it from TikTok, but in my mind, I mean, I was definitely planning on asking you about that tonight, because in my mind, and you're the one that actually were like, we're talking about the where the bodies are dumped, and these are cryptid hotspots. Okay, places that are like that. They are. I hate to say that, but they are.
Well, that's like a good friend of mine. I haven't talked to her in a long time. She has the Alabama Ghost Hunters. She lives down in Opelika, and that's their area: Opelika, Auburn, Salem, down toward Columbus. She used to put on the big one at the Confederate Museum where they have the ship in Columbus, and they have all them artifacts. They say that place is very haunted when you go in there, and she does a lot of that. But she told me there's a road there below Auburn and Opelika, and I cannot think of the name of the road now. I've looked it up before. It's a long dirt road. And she told me that a lot of bodies get dumped on that road, but also there have been reports of canine type creatures around that road. And her and some of her team went down there at night before, and there's a couple times they got to the point that they felt they needed to leave. So there were reports of canine-looking creatures. And not far from there is the Tuskegee National Forest, which is a very small forest. There's some reports have come from that national forest about Dogmen. So that's not too far out of the Auburn-Opelika area. Auburn's about 60 miles from me. And Tuskegee is kind of going back toward Montgomery from Auburn off of I-85. And that's where some other stuff has popped up. Now, of course, that ain't too far from Chattahoochee again. Right? Chattahoochee coming back in there, and play again. So
the Troop Herd Corridor. That's a big hot spot. I mean, I've heard rumors, like you said, I can't say this is true. Okay, but I've heard rumors that there are some kind of like secret bases and like underground facilities around that area as well. And of course there is Fort Benning down there, and but Fort Benning is more south. I think it's more like near Columbus from where we do like research and stuff. So it's a little farther south, but I mean, there's been a lot of Bigfoot sightings around Fort Benning as well, and all these military bases.
Heard a lot of that. They be in there at night doing maneuvers and be catching stuff with the night vision or thermals. And they'd have what they say were Bigfoot running around in there with them. And same way with Fort McClellan up here. It used to be in Anniston. I mean, the government still has some stuff going on there, but most of the base is gone now. They've gave a lot of it to the city of Anniston and turned some of it into a refuge. But they were talking about when training was going on there, that people were seeing stuff up on side of them mountains, and there, them soldiers go up there and do war maneuvers up on them side of them mountains, and they were seeing stuff up there while they were training. And of course, that's another hotbed through there. A lot of reports. And that's, of course, where the Chockalaka monster that was real prevalent in the 1930s, 40s, that it came from that area right there, kind of east of Anniston, in that Chockalaka Creek basin in there, where people were seeing these monkey-looking creatures out in their cotton fields going across them. And they was finding the tracks, and they finally got the sheriff of that county. I could tell you his name. I can't remember it right now. Put together what he called a posse. I
love posses. Mark, we need to gather up some more posses. I love that, man. Right. That's what the world's missing right now are posses. Yeah, that's the problem with the world. We don't have enough posses anymore. Okay. Get the
Uh,
moonshine and grab your guns. No, I'm just kidding.
so they, that's right. They, you know, but there were several newspaper articles talked about that. They found footprints, all kind of stuff. Then all of a sudden, it just got quiet. You know, of course, Talladega National Forest is right there, not far from it. So whatever they were seeing, they went back to the Talladega National Forest. A lot of people said it was a family unit. You could see a big one that was a little smaller than one that was like kid size. So it was like a family unit moving around. You know, maybe they were looking for food. Maybe there was a big squabble going on, you know, where the rest of the clan was or something. They was getting away. I mean, you never know. But a lot of sightings. And that Chocolaca Creek dumps out right there at the end where the guys had the pretty close to that area where they had the Dogman sightings. So there's another creek that's coming out of the national forest, dumping into the Coosa River, that is producing sightings, you know, of Dogmen. So, you know, there's no telling what's running up down them creek basins that nobody's really seeing that much unless you just happen to be at the right spot at the right time. You know, so
They love those dried creek beds. And
they do.
that's a super highway for the Dogmen and the Bigfoots. And we get a lot of reports out of those dry creek beds. Actually, when I was in the LBL, one of the first times I went, I got war criminal in the chat. Matt, my buddy Matt's in here tonight
Oh
in
yeah,
the chat.
I met
And
before.
oh
He's
yeah,
got
Matt's great. And well, we were out there with Barton. By the way, happy birthday to Letitia Nunley. It's her birthday today, y'all. So happy birthday, Tish, from the
oh yeah,
Cryptid
happy.
Hunters and Mark. But we were with them and Miss Anna and Kevin. I don't know if Kevin was there. It was actually Anna and her daughter actually were with us. And we took a nice little hike out in the middle of the night. And me and Matt went a little further, you know, because we couldn't, not everybody could get as far out as where me and Matt were trekking. But he took me to a place where there were some dry creek beds out of the LBL. And I told him, I was like, man, that's the place to go right there. Set up, you know, some cameras right here, you know, go sit out here all night, just see what happens. You know, get your night vision, get your thermals. And that's the spot. That's the spot to go look at.
I noticed the few times that I've been at LBL, there are a lot of dry creek beds in that place.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's something because of lack of rain or if something dealing with them playing with the water on the two lakes on each side. I don't know. They may back up water at certain times of the year, and then the water comes in, and maybe later in the year they're doing dam repairs on the dams where they'll drop the water. That's kind of what they do here on the Coosa. Several of the lakes during the winter they'll drop them where they can work, but also they drop it to control flooding. That way, if you start having a lot of rains, they can fill up, So it's kind of flood control and maintenance. But I noticed a lot of that a lot of places up in that area had a lot of dry creek beds, and those would be natural places for stuff to walk. There's no doubt. Just like they like power lines. How many reports do you hear of a power line being involved? And of course, deer and all other wildlife like to use power lines. They use them a lot. So I've heard of I don't know how many Bigfoot sightings coming off of power lines where they would walk across them or they'd walk down them. And in fact, at LBL, me and Spencer and Anthony found tracks in that big power line, one of those big transmission lines. We found them there on the side of a hill. Pretty good impressions. That was the first meet and greet we had there. That would have been in 24, 23. Y'all excuse me, I can't remember, but we had it in the spring of 23 or 24. We went over there, and in fact, I will say this: while we were looking at them tracks, we had something back down a holler from us make a god awful racket. I mean, it didn't really sound like a Bigfoot, but it was a strange noise that kind of caught us all off guard. But the LLBL is a neat place. It and Talladega National Forest have a lot of similarities to it. Now, of course, Talladega National Forest has the big mountains, where LBL is more hilly, and but they have a lot of similarities to it.
A lot of cemeteries. Indian
Yes.
burial mounds. Indian burial mounds and cemeteries. I don't know if it's the
LBL
same
probably
way.
has more cemeteries than Talladega National Forest, but they both got their share. A lot of old home places. I still see some in the Talladega National Forest. I can go show you where tons of whales are, where old houses used to be, and old barbed wire fences. And they kind of done sort of the same basic thing to the people in Talladega National Forest, but it was in the 1930s when they done it. Of course, they bought a lot of them out, but also I heard they came and moved some of them out. I heard that. I can't prove that, but I heard they moved some of them out. But also they let some of them stay till their death. In other words, when they passed away, they let them keep the land, but when they passed away, their children or grandchildren could not inherit the property. It went to the National Forest. So I guess they done some kind of, they bought the
Grandfather.
property.
Yeah, it's like a reverse grandfather clause. It's like, yeah, you're out of here. That's not cool. That puts even more trauma on that land right there, in my opinion. And I think I think trauma has a lot to do with, and I mean trauma on the land, like battles, wars, land disputes. People getting kicked off the property. That has a lot to do with some of this cryptid activity, I think.
It could be it could draw them. Of course, there's other things I think draw them. Is like our area has a lot of quartz. There's quartz everywhere. About everywhere you go, there's quartz. Especially to get up on these hillsides and mountainsides. Out there in Talladega National Forest, I've seen quartz up there the size of a vehicle sitting up on the side of them hills. I mean, just this big gigantic piece of quartz, sitting there. Of course, this was the gold belt of Alabama. Was this area coming back towards y'all in Georgia? Is a kind of a gold belt that starts with Dahlonega. I think Dahlonega.
Dahlonega, it goes all the way down to West Georgia. Villa Rica is the city of gold. It's a rich city, right? And they actually, that's on the west. That's right there to Alabama almost. I mean, it's right there on 20. And they have gold mines there.
Right.
Old gold mines.
Then it came on in Alabama, like Cleburne and Randolph County, Clay, Talladega. And of course, we got a little place called Goldville here, and Gold Branch, this and we have a gold camp over in Clay County. In fact, Wendell is a member of it, and and I'm gonna tell you now, there's Bigfoot there. I have two reports. One of them was from the gold camp, and one of them was from a hunting club not far from the gold camp. There's a railroad that comes through there. And the guy that was in the hunting club went during the summer to camp on this creek. It's the same creek that goes through the camp, through the gold camp. They had set up tents. They were kind of on a big sandbar. Had his girlfriend, her kids there with him. They were going to camp out that night. And up on this big high hill ridge across the creek is a railroad that comes across there. And he said all of a sudden rocks started hitting the water in front of him there late that evening. And he said he got to looking, he thought somebody was trying to play with him, and he got to paying attention. And he said it was way up there on top of that hill where that railroad kind of come across there. Them rocks were coming from the top of that railroad up there, and he figured out it was them railroad rocks. And he said, Mark, there is no way a human being to throw rocks that far and hit right in front of us in that creek. He said, there's no human that I could know of that could throw rocks. And it spooked him, it spooked him. And, I got to ask him, I said, well, how far are you from the gold camp? He said, maybe a couple of miles. And, that's the same creek. And I told him, I said, well, it's possible because I had took a report from the gold camp, of a Bigfoot hanging out in that area. And I told him, I said, it's very possible that a Bigfoot was fooling with you, trying to run you off or whatever he's doing. I said, don't sound like he's trying to hit you with the rocks. He's just trying to run you off. That's how I felt, but
Mark, I was going to tell you, me and War Criminal, were out. We were actually camping out with Martin Groves and Barton and Letitia, and something against my better judgment, I stayed up late. Okay, and I was tired. I had just driven in that night or that day to the LBL. We were camping out the LBL, Mark, and I was me and War Criminal, me and Matt, everybody had turned in. Martin was sleeping over in his truck, and Letitia and Barton were in their tent. And so we were up by the fire, and we were just having fun. We were laughing, Mark. We were having the best time, just laughing. And out of nowhere, about 2 o'clock in the morning on the dot, just around on the dot, because I remember asking Matt what time it was, because I didn't have a watch, didn't have my phone, I didn't have anything on me. We got ambushed at 2 o'clock in the morning, sitting around that campfire where multiple beings were running down the hill behind us. It was like a ridge, like a huge hill, and then there was a Indian burial mound right beside it. And they were they were kind of behind us, and then the lake was in front of us. And there was nobody out there much, okay, except for we're out in the middle of nowhere. There was a gentleman with his daughters that were camping down the way from us. And so I was actually, when we were getting ambushed, I was glad it was us and not those kids getting it. Right. You know what I mean? And but we got ambushed, and whatever it was circling the camp. It ran down really loud, heavy steps, and it slid down at the bottom of the hill the first time we heard it, and they started running at us. And me and Matt jumped up, got back to back up against a tree. And those things were throwing rocks at us, Mark. They were throwing rocks with precision. I mean, when I ran over to my truck to go grab something to protect myself and my night vision device and stuff, right when I got to my door, they threw a rock in the lake right in front of my truck. And so it splashed real loud right when I got to my truck. And it went on for over an hour with them just circling us, and I couldn't get my night vision to focus. And, we're sitting there thinking, I was asking Matt, I was like, we couldn't see them. They were 10 feet in front of us, Mark, but we couldn't see them. They were pushing Martin's truck with him in it. And they were throwing rocks. We had rocks. It was everywhere. It was just wild. And it was a little threatening. I'm not going to lie. It was a little terrifying, but it was also cool looking back at it because we didn't get hurt. Okay. But I was asking Matt, I was like, are these Bigfoots? Are they Indian, like Native American ghosts? Is it paramilitary and cloaking device material? I mean, like, what is this? We could not see it, Mark. It was right in front of us. And so it shows me there's definitely a paranormal aspect to all this stuff. And
I think both of them are part of each other. There's no doubt that they, when I first started got it, into this, I was leaning toward flesh and blood, but over time I have, stuff I've witnessed, heard, and what I call trusted friends tell me, there's a lot more to this. And it's like the portal that popped up on the club years ago. I never dreamed about no portal. That wasn't in my, thinking about Bigfoot, and when, of course, it may not have been a Bigfoot, what my friends seen. I mean, we don't know, but it was actually in a field where a lot of stuff had went on with Bigfoot. So that's why I kind of leaned it may have been something of that nature. But, there's 3 individuals witnessed, something grow. It was just like it come out of nowhere. It was just like a big ball opened up. The figure was standing there, and my friend described the inside of this like churning water. It had this blue tint, it's like water churning in there, and this figure out like it was fixing to step out, and then I guess the figure seen them and just stepped back, and this thing just went whoop, just like that. There was the fourth person with them who had his back to this because he was using a thermal, and they said this took quick. This took place so quick. I mean, this was so fast that they didn't even say nothing to him about it till it was over. And I was out in the road not far from them, maybe 100 yards, because there was a lady who just would not get out of her vehicle. And another of my friend's wife was there too, and she didn't go out there. So I felt like, hey, I might need to stay out here around them while they're over here. And they come back. There's no doubt they were sick, headache, throwing up, feeling bad. We got back to camp. They went to feeling better. Now, the real odd thing was these three different people from three different states all ended up about a year later with stomach cancer. And now, of course, all three of them have survived. Everybody's doing well. But they both came up with stomach cancer. So that's very strange that three people from three different parts of the country witnessed the same thing. Within a year, they all have stomach cancer. It just kind of.
Mark, I'm so sorry. I don't want to interrupt you, but the same things have happened to my team. And actually, as a matter of fact, tomorrow will be I think it's the 6-year anniversary of Tim passing away. Okay. We had an incident out in an undisclosed location somewhere in the south at the meadow. And we had the portal thing showed up. Now that's kind of separate from what I was about to tell you. Okay. But Bob, Grumpy, and Tim went and checked this thing out, this cube that showed up in the field. And within a short period, both of them had developed Tim had a heart condition that he didn't know about that happened. He was very young and very well in shape. And we thought, but this is after they experienced that. Bob got an aggressive form of cancer, and they both passed away. And so there's that. There's also another, and there are other people on my team too. We don't talk about this often, and I'm not going to say their names or, I'm not putting anybody's business out there, but several people on that team have developed a form of cancer. And we think it's the radiation. Okay. And Bob was even suspicious of the radiation causing all of this, some of the health problems out there. Now, there's that. Now, let me move on to the portal incident, because you were talking about how those gentlemen had witnessed the people had seen that, like a portal opening. It's almost like an aquatic looking blurry thing in the middle. Well, back, I don't know what year it was a long time ago. We were up in North Georgia at a base camp, one of the scariest base camps my team's ever gone to. And we used to go there a lot. And in the middle of the night, it wasn't that super late, but we were all just sitting around the fire, and the head of our team just jumped up and took off kind of running. And what happened was there was a portal, just like how you described, opened up behind our tents, and two creatures were crawling out of it. And we heard him scream. And as he screamed, one of them got sucked back in it, and the other one got spit out. And it was the sound that this thing made was the most terrifying, crazy scream I've ever heard in my life, Mark. It ran, you could hear it running from wherever it got spit out of that portal thing. It went, and this thing was like suspended in the air, kind of like how you described it. The way it looked was a little different. Okay. But it's the same concept. And we heard this thing take off running all behind our tents. And it sounded like a mix between a woman screaming and pain and agony and anger, and then an animal mixed in with that. And you could hear it running on 2 feet. And all night, right after that happened, within an hour, it was almost like we got hypnotized. And we all went to bed. And we should have been up chasing that thing down. And we didn't. We went to bed. The thing threw rocks at our tents all night. All of us. And it was just the weirdest thing, Mark. Nothing made sense. None of it.
You hear a lot of similarities when you hear other people talk about seeing portals, and I mean you hear a lot of similarities to it. Now, I have personally never seen one, but I do not doubt what people have told me on that. I mean, I know we live in a very spiritual world. I mean, the Bible says we live in a spiritual world, and there's no telling what goes on. I mean, it's just like the spot that we camp out in the Talladega National Forest a lot. That place pops up with orbs, flashes of light, the ground vibrating. You think there's an earthquake happening. You go look at the U.S. Geological Survey, which keeps up with earthquakes. There's nothing mentioned about earthquake in that area. I know several outings we've had there that everybody's been woke up because the ground shaking. But when you go to check, there's nothing about an earthquake, or a tremor or anything. Of course, this place is highly full of quartz. Quartz does have energy. I mean, they use quartz in a lot of industry and stuff for watches and phones and electronics. So it does, it's able to harness or either distribute energy. So but this place we've witnessed a little bit of everything. But somebody said there that one of our campouts, they noticed all of a sudden down below camp, it's like heat coming off. You know how heat, when it comes off the pavement, you can see they were watching and they happened to see that just kind of float across an opening down there. And they said it was this, like heat coming off pavement and went on in the woods. And, it's not a good explanation for that. Especially when this was early summer. I mean, it was early June. It's not very hot at that time period. No raining going on. Of course, I know you see heat waves at times. There's no doubt about that. But we're in thick timber where it's actually very cool at. And, breeze, and this thing just kind of, floats up, across there, and this person just catches it, just happen to be looking at the right, direction. So, and you hear other people describing that same scenario. It's like, especially with David Pilates, with some of the people that have come forward and said they have encountered these, looks like, steam, like the heat coming off the ground and, in the middle of the woods. So, I mean, I don't know what they are. I mean, I know some people say, well, it's just something that nature does. I don't think it is, in my opinion. But, of course, I can't say what it is. But, I mean, it's something there. It's too many people saying they're seeing it.
I wanted to bring this idea up, this theory, and something that I believe could be true. And considering that Bigfoots can have a supernatural element to them potentially, I call it the X factor. That's what some of the guys on my team and we all call it the X factor. Because there's something, it's not just all flesh and bone. Okay, these creatures, there's something to them, or they're accessing portals or something. But you were talking about the power lines. And something that I think, and this is just a theory, maybe they are actually using those power lines to manifest into this reality. Maybe now that's an interesting rabbit hole to go down. Okay, but they could be
very possible. I'll tell you, I've done an experiment here. Me and Spencer talked about it a good bit. Me and him kept up with it, but I took a 12-volt marine battery because all of a sudden I was having battery problems here. Tractors wouldn't want to crank, trucks wouldn't want to crank. I was having to jump everything off, and I was trying to figure out what was going on. This was about this time that a lot of the stuff was going on with the corn patch, with my neighbors seeing stuff, having stuff happen. And I took a 12-volt battery, put it on full charge, 100%, carried it out in the middle of my field, set it on a piece of wood on the ground, and I left it. And I would go back, and check the voltage on it every so often. It took about a week, but that battery went completely to zero. That battery got drained. Now, of course, some people say, well, the hot sun drained it. It shouldn't happen. Not if that battery's in good shape. I know hot weather does zap them. There's no doubt about that. 2 times a year, batteries fail is either when it's real cold or when it's burning up hot. But this was a 12-volt battery that deep cell. There shouldn't have been nothing pulling that battery. And one reason I'm saying that because I had deer type cell cameras that were acting up during that time, that their battery were getting drained real quick. I mean, you talking about a lithium battery, and I'd go put a brand new set in them cameras, and 2 days later, them batteries are dead. Now, I didn't get 150, 200 pictures neither. I only got 3 or 4 pictures, and I'm talking about batteries dead as a door now. So something was going on during that time period with lithium batteries and a deep cell battery. And I still have that deep cell. It still holds charge. I still use it. Something pulled that battery down. What? I have no idea. I can't say what it was. But, just great. Hey, that's cool, Ken. Yeah.
Hi, Ken. Ken, he says, Mark, I saw the same thing one night cross the road in front of me on Fayetteville Highway. Thank you, Ken.
He's talking about the Fayetteville over here next to me. That's I wasn't down it, Ken. I wasn't down it big. That's another area. That is an area that's very close to Creepy Mountain too. So there's a lot of course, that's where the big marble quarries are located here in Sylacauga. So there's a lot of strange stuff that goes on in that area. Of course, where I live here in Sylacauga is where the only known person ever hit by a meteorite was hit at. That was 400 yards from where I grew up, but that was back in 1954. Came through the roof, hit the radio, and bounced off the radio over and come over and hit her on the hip, put her in the hospital.
Oh, my God.
The University of Alabama Natural History Museum has that meteorite now. And they bring it back to our little small town of Oak Grove, where actually it happened at. And so we had that. Of course, we had Gravity Hill, this right over here off of Creepy Mountain, that they say it's an optical illusion, but I've heard some surveyors come and survey it and say it ain't an optical illusion, but you can take your car, put it in neutral, and the car will roll up or pull uphill on its own in neutral. Tons of people have done it. I mean, every time you go by there, you see people trying it out. And I've carried people over and done it, and it does it. Of course, state Alabama Highway Department says it's an optical illusion. But I know one personal surveyor, I know him real well, that he just went over one time with his equipment set up. He said, it ain't an optical illusion. He said, if it is, he said, my equipment's lying to me. I don't know. And they call it Gravity Hill. They call that area Gravity Hill. It's a very popular place. So there's something going on with that area, something about magnetism or something. Just a lot of different strange things. Other thing is the 33rd parallel line comes right through where I live at. It's 6 miles from here where the exact line is. Of course, I live in the 33rd parallel. Of course, they say there's a lot of strange occurrences with the 33rd, in different areas. And it's lined up with some of the different things in the world, through Israel, Egypt, Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, over here in the United States. Of course, it comes through South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana. And, they talk about a lot of strange things on that 33rd parallel. Some people say it's just, if you go look at the other parallels, they have the same thing. Maybe they do. I don't know. I haven't really looked into that. But I think there's something to it a little bit. I think there's something to it, but what I
And
really don't know, you know.
I was going to ask you, you've been struck by lightning before too, correct?
Yes.
And what is the significance with that? Because there are other people who have had Bigfoot and Dogman encounters who have also been struck by lightning.
Yeah, I don't know. I was very fortunate that day. I was still sitting on a tractor. Me and a buddy of mine were cutting hay. He had done stepped off onto the ground, and lightning hit a tree pretty close to us out of nowhere. Now, there was not a cloud in the sky all around us. Of course, they say lightning can shoot for 20 miles, but it hit that tree. It came over. Of course, I felt the tingle when it hit. I mean, the tractor probably protected me because of the tires, but my buddy got hit pretty good. It knocked him off his feet. He rolled around on the ground, got up. Now, he was lucky he probably survived. I don't know, maybe it's because of the footwear he had on or what. Yeah, it hit a tree probably within 30, 40 feet of us. And I felt the electricity hit me, and but not to the point it did him. It knocked him off his feet and rolled him. And he was okay. It was strange. Of course, I thank God was with us that day. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, I haven't been like some people that's really got hit hard. Now, you talk about strange. I've talked about this on the show. The town of Chillersburg, which is 7 miles from me, there's a fella. You can go read about it. It's on the internet. I think he was struck. Maybe I may misquote this a little bit. I want to say he was struck 5 to 6 times in his lifetime. Even his headstone has been struck several times. They just quit putting his headstone up.
What?
He's dead. You can go up there and see it right now. There's a guy who goes around the U.S. looking at famous people's graves, and he done one on Chillersburg. And me and Rebecca done a small video on it. We had Misty and Sherry off of the SAS group with us, and went and showed them that. And of course, the family, the next time it happened, they just never put nothing back up. And there's pieces of his tombstone just laid everywhere, just like it exploded when it hit. But I mean, it's just crazy, that I think he survived 2 or 3 of them, and I want to say that may have been what took him out too. But
good grief!
So
What?
So he was putting off some kind of energy that that lightning was drawn to him. I have no idea, or either he had done made the Lord that mad or something.
I was gonna say.
But I mean, something was going on there. He was cursed or something. I don't know.
He must have been fighting Zeus in a past life or something. I don't know. That's weird. That's really strange.
Yeah, if anybody wants to look that up, just type in the guy hit by lightning in Chillersburg, Alabama. It probably pull it right up on the internet.
Oh my gosh.
There's a lot of strange things in this area I live at. I mean, Bigfoot, Dogman, people being hit by meteorites, the lightning, the forks, the paranormal, a lot of paranormal here. Just tons and tons of just strange stuff, that just don't make sense, for a lot of it. So it's just a strange area to live in. Some people say this area is cursed. I don't know if that is or not, but I've heard people say it's cursed. Could have something to do with that 33rd parallel.
It could. Well, I mean, the tales go back, the legends and the lore of, because I'm over here in like Northwest Georgia and West Georgia area, and my stomping grounds. I love coming over to Alabama. Okay, I live right on the Alabama line, so and I go to Alabama a lot, by the way. But the tales go back centuries. Okay, even with that bear man. Now, you were telling me before the show that you had gone and investigated some new some new creature. It's an old creature actually, but there. What did you call that thing? Can we talk about that? That you
Yeah.
went and saw
That was
today, maybe?
that was the Chilton County peach monster.
Peach monster.
Yep. This was back from the late 50s, early 60s, down in Chilton County, which is kind of about 30 miles southwest from here. We went, me and Rebecca say, hey, we got to have a day off. So we had some stuff we took care of this morning. We decided to take the evening off. We just went ride. And we didn't even have a particular place we wanted to go ride. But I told her, I said, we'll head to Coosa County, then we're going to head over to Chilton County. And I said, we're going to stop. And there's a graveyard, a cemetery I've been wanting to check out because my third great-grandfather's buried there, and I've never been there, but I knew where it was at. And I said, well, this will be a good day to go check out this cemetery, find his grave. And of course, Rebecca loves to walk graveyards. That's one of her favorite things to do. She just loves to read people's, tombstones when they were born, died. And, we've seen a lot today. In fact, we came across another old cemetery. Before I get into that, I'll tell about this. We came across another old cemetery way back in the woods. Church was still there, and I'm not going to name the church that way, that don't compromise it. But this church had to be built in the 1800s because they had the rock foundations, the double doors. You could say, but they had power run to it. And I'm thinking they're probably still having church service there. But across the road was a very, very old cemetery. Had the old style fence, So we went walking around in it. Of course, it was a lot of graves from the 1800s. What was real sad about it, Rebecca brought up a lot of children, a lot of kids. You can tell 1 or 2 years old. A lot of them. One family looked like they lost 7, 8 babies. I mean, it was kind of sad. I mean, they were all just, that was very sad. So that was real cool. Not cool about the kids, but I'm talking, cool to walk around that old cemetery. A lot of graves that you could tell were Confederate soldiers with the old iron. The Confederate cross, they called it, some of them, and then, of course, flags. So somebody's taking care of the cemetery. So that was very cool. We left there and headed on towards Chilton County, and we crossed the river and come into a little town called Verbena. Very old town. And that's where my great-great-grandfather's buried at. And I told her, I said, let's go find his grave real quick. So we went and found that cemetery. It's a pretty old cemetery. He died in 1901, so that tells you, it's a pretty old cemetery. And we found his grave, and his second wife, not my real grandma, it had been his second wife, found her grave and some of their kids that they had together. But when we were coming back, we came back north, and I told Rebecca, I said, well, we're right here close to where the Chilton County peach monster was seen a lot during the 1950s. That part of Alabama is where our bulk of our peaches are grown. It's a big peach growing area, still is now. Also produce with like watermelons, sweet corn, peas. So it's a big farming area. But it's a lot of creeks still in that place. But we came up and crossed the creek, and the name of the creek was Walnut Creek. It runs right through the middle of the town called Clanton. But right there on the outskirts of Clanton, where a lot of the peach orchards are. Some of them are still there now. But the story goes, and there was some newspaper articles about it, that in the late 1950s, some of the peach farmers were noticing a lot of peaches going missing at one time. And this was before deer were back plentiful in Alabama. This was back before Alabama started restocking the deer populations. So there were not a lot of animals that could really come in there and take a lot of peaches at one time. Deer can, what they can reach, But they were noticing whole trees just be gone. The peaches would be gone. But then they started finding footprints. And that's when they contacted the sheriff of that county at the time. And he came out and he made, cast of these prints. And for a long time, these prints were in the Shelton County Courthouse when you entered the courthouse. They were on display. Now they redone the courthouse, I think, in the 80s, and they said these tracks disappeared. I don't know if they just got put up somewhere, never got put back out. I mean, we don't really know the truth there. But the story goes on that finally the sheriff and some deputies, there's getting so many calls on this, I think it was getting on their nerves. They started doing some stakeouts. And they went to this one farm where it was really happening a lot. And they actually seen one of these things. And they chased the thing into a holler there next to that guy's farm. Well, the sheriff told the two deputies to go in there with it, and they refused to go in there with it. They said this thing was screaming, hollering, tearing the place up down in there. Of course, there was probably more with it there somewhere that they just wouldn't see it. So that's the kind of the story of the Shelton County peach monster. You don't hear much about it, and you have to really do some digging to find it. It's one of those that don't pop up real easy. You have to kind of know what you're looking for to get it popped up. I have went back and found a few of the newspaper articles from it, and read what they was talking about. And there used to be a lady here in Alabama. She used to have a website. It was called Bigfoot, Wildflowers, and Jerky or something. I can't remember. It was something like that. And I actually talked to this lady one time, and she'd done a real thorough report on that. She actually went to Shelton County, talked to people. I think she interviewed some of the people that was actually still living that was involved in this. And she done a very detailed report, and I read that report. She done a very good job on it. But I don't know if that lady passed away and her website disappeared. I tried to go in and find it before. I can't find it no more. But and I don't know if she ever published it anywhere else besides her website. But it was, and some of the locals down there do know about it. I had a guy who's a pastor about a year ago contact me. And he's actually in North Georgia now, pastoring a church, but he's from that area and owns some property not far from that Walnut Creek. And he called and talked to me. In fact, how he got in touch with me was through the Bigfoot Museum there at Cherry Law.
I passed it today.
Right. So, because they knew this area, I knew a little bit about. So this guy, we talked, and he went to telling me a lot about what went on his property, his neighbor's property. And when I brought up Walnut Creek, I said, well, how far is your property from Walnut Creek? He said, man, I can walk about a mile and be on Walnut Creek from my property. So, and what happened to him, I tried to get him on the YouTube channel, but he is so busy, and of course he's doing a great thing. He's doing prison ministry. He has his own church, so he's a very busy guy. And I need to call him again and see if he'll make time. But he said that him and a buddy of his went to, there's an old house place on there that belonged to some of his kinfolks. And they went down there one night and decided to camp out. And they just going to sleep on the front porch on the old house. And they had went to sleep. And his buddy woke him up. And he said, somebody is standing right over there looking at us. He said, what are you talking about? Somebody? He said, somebody's over by our vehicle looking at us. He said, I've been watching him walk back and forth for about 5 minutes. So in their mind, they were thinking somebody,
Yeah.
around. So kind of raised up, and he said, kind of said something, said, hey, who are you, or something of that nature. But this thing broke and run and went and got in wood line. He said, wait a minute, this ain't acting like a normal human, you know. And about that time, it let out a big old growl back at him. He said, that way ain't no human. He said, whatever that is, ain't human. And they ended up jumping in the car and leaving. And that's when he really went to pay attention to this property. And he started finding footprints and got talking to neighbors and found out that some of them were experiencing stuff and seeing stuff. So that's right there in that area where all this from the Shelton County Peach Monster comes from. So
Man.
now I just call it the Shelton County Peach Monster. I don't know if you type that in on the internet, if that's going to pull it up like that. But that's what I call it. And that's what a lot of other people down in that area kind of refer it to. And there's some people down in there that know about it. And I know they're running around down there. There's no doubt. They're not far from where some other sightings are going on the Coosa County side of the river. Not far from there either. So, so they're using that area. There's no doubt.
Yeah, hey, it's Miss Lanita. Hey, Lanita. Thank you for being here. Another Alabamian.
Oh, yeah.
We're there. You're talking about it taking the peaches. It's always surprising to me to hear. I mean, I don't know why I'm surprised about the Bigfoot stories about them eating fruits and vegetables. That's normal, it seems like. But I've been hearing stories about dogmen eating citrus fruits out of orchards out in California. Like dogmen, because I'm thinking I'm not in terms of like my dog. Like my dog's not going to eat citrus fruit, okay? But the dogmen are doing it, and they're seen out there quite often. And you got them coming. I mean, they're probably eating some of the vegetables and fruits out of your garden, I would assume.
Yeah, that could be. I could see them doing it. I mean, you take a coyote about eat anything. They love watermelons. They'll pull your watermelons out of your field and eat them. So I could see where Dogman would probably be. I mean, they're probably more carnivore when they need to be, which would probably be more in wintertime when you're eating more protein and fat. But come summer, just like us, if we eat a lot of meat in the summer, it's kind of rough on you a little bit. You kind of tend to want to eat more cool stuff and, more vegetables, but because they're in season too. I imagine they do take advantage of anything they can probably get their hands on. I would see that. They might be needing something from that citrus. They might need some kind of mineral vitamin that they're not getting from anywhere else. That might be why they're seeking that out too. It's hard to say, but I think they're very anything that comes along that's easy for them to get, and they don't have to fight for it a lot. I think they're going to go for it.
What is that called that you get if you don't have citrus or vitamin C? You get scurvy, right? Is that what that is? They may get scurvy, whatever that is.
Right. So I can see that. I would think that'd be very possible. And I mean, I think that's what the Bigfoot, that whatever I call it, a dog man. Are probably doing here is they were probably getting some of my corn, getting some of my watermelons. I'll tell you this: I don't think they go in places and just raid it. I mean, of course, down there at that peach orchard seemed like they were raiding it pretty good. But I know a guy that told me about his grandfather had an apple farm not too far from here, and his granddaddy actually shot at a Bigfoot, but he thought people were stealing his apples, and he went and sit in his apple orchard one night, and of course one came in to get apples, and I think he shot him with a shotgun, and of course the thing run off screaming and hollering, and then I think he figured out, wait a minute, I didn't shoot a human, I just shot something else, and I've been on this property several times, and the grandson who owns the property now has found multiple tracks. And in fact, he was on Finding Bigfoot with us when Finding Bigfoot come here. He was sitting at a shooting house one morning overlooking a cutover, and one come out of the cutover, walked down the road right at daylight. And he got a pretty good picture of it. And it is part of the Alabama, when Finding Bigfoot come here, it was part of that show on that property. And I think he talked about his granddaddy shooting one. This would have been I think in the 60s when he actually shot one with a shotgun. And, of course, it run off screaming. So that tells me that there's a group, staying in that area. And, they're still there now. By the footprints he's found, stuff and of course, what he's seen in 2012 when he took the picture. And I still in touch with him some now. And he still hears vocalizations. Hasn't found any footprints in a while, but he feels they're still there too. So I mean, just every time people go to talking and they get comfortable with you, they start telling you this stuff, that you would never hear, and and you start putting two and two together. This stuff's been going on a long time, but as well as I do, Jessica, Southern people, they kind of hush mouth for a while. They're just not going to come out and talk about stuff, real quick, till they get to really know you good and they figure out you're not going to make fun of them or go tell 100 other people. They'll come out and start telling you stuff and, giving you information that you wouldn't have dreamed that you would get,
I got plenty of people that send me messages pretty often, or people that I meet in person. We do these in-person events pretty regularly. At least I do. I'm out there. I've kind of taken the summer off a little bit to get into doing some more research and stuff, and like not doing so many events. My next one's not till October right now. Okay, but people will pull me to the side and tell me stuff. They don't want to be public. They don't want to go on a show. They don't want anybody to know their name or their face, but they just want to tell somebody what they've experienced.
Right.
And I appreciate that, because it kind of adds to, every account that we get, every report we get, that I kind of put it in the back of my head and I can kind of map it out. And I'm really good at connecting dots, Mark. So are you. We're really good at connecting dots. You get good at it. If you're not already, you get good at it when you start researching cryptids and stuff. We really do a good job of connecting dots and the phenomenon, the regions, maybe even migration patterns or whatever, or just family lineages and, generational, encounters and all that kind of stuff.
I think it's just, we start experiencing, we're not experts by no means, but we start experiencing and that we start learning from it. Now, we may find out one day everything we learned is blown out of the water. That's start over. You never know, but it does seem to be some patterns, and these patterns are consistent, when you hear stuff from different areas all over the U.S., not just here in the South, but from everywhere, all parts, you hear a lot of similarities, a lot of similar patterns, and so, it's pretty cool, and I think there is something to it, I think some of them do migrate. Then I think you have some that just stay where they're at. They've got a good home. They got a food source. They got a water source. The humans ain't messing with them. Why would you leave, And then you have these, and some of the ones that's migrating may be these young juvenile males that are hunting for new mates, or maybe a place to call their own. I mean, the alpha may have done said, hey, you got to go, boy. It's time for you to get on down the road, find your own place to hang out. So that could be some of that. I agree with a lot of people when hunt season comes in with hunting pressure. If some are on a hunting club, and the hunters start coming in a lot, they may move off to another area and hang out while hunt season's going on. And then as soon as hunting season's over, they come back. So I think that could be some of the migration. I mean, that's a theory that Kumbo has, that the ones up in his area When hunting season comes in, for like Bankhead, a lot of property, they go to properties like his and others where there's not a lot of hunting pressure going on. And then as soon as hunting season's over, they head back into those areas. Plus, they could have areas that where they raise their kids, their children. They could, be a place that they have selected that they feel real secure with raising, when they're born up to a certain age too. So, I believe that's what Creepy Mountain is. I believe Creepy Mountain is they know it's secure. They know us hunters enough to know that probably not going to bother them. And they feel very secure because some of the parts of the club nobody goes because the hollers are so deep, and to get in there, I mean, if I harvested a deer out there, it'd kill you to get the deer out of there. So I mean, people won't hunt there. So they know them places that humans are not going to deal with, and that could be a place they're raising young, and hanging out at certain times of the year. And I think they probably do that on some properties, and then some of them roam around. I mean, it's just hard to say on that.
Mm-hmm. Well, they know your intentions out there too, and I feel like it's kind of a safe haven. I can appreciate the fact that they probably do go away and they come back, after hunting season's over and stuff. I mean, there are a lot of hunters out that way, and even at that hunt camp that I met y'all at, there's been some pretty strange deaths out there. At least one, right? And in abandoned campsites. And when I was out there camping one night. We had a tree that got knocked over while I was out there. I got hit with some infrasound. It's a very interesting place out there. I mean, to me, it feels like a safe place. Okay, of course, and I think that's a safe place. I don't think they like maybe people going out there they don't know camping and stuff. I think that's the issue for some of the critters out there. I think so. They let you
Well,
know when they don't feel safe or they don't want you there. That's for sure.
I think they know your intent when you come in there,
Mm-hmm.
that area. I mean, every time I've camped out down there, something's went on, and everybody else has been at that place has experienced stuff. Uh, there was, a guy that was found there in the '80s that his death was very weird. I mean, it sounded like something got a hold of him, by tearing the arm off, twisting the leg, and his body twisted like a rag. And he was found, very close to his tree stand, and his rifle was not discharged. There's been some other deaths down in that area. Now, some of the locals will tell you that some of them are drug related, where people went out and overdosed, which is very possible. I'm not going to say that it happened. And then, it's hard to say about the one from the '80s. I did see a paper that was supposed to have been an official coroner's paper. I do not know if it was real or not. But it did say death by unknown animal. Now, maybe that's the only way the coroner could write it up because that's all he knew. I mean, I don't know. I don't know of too many animals in my area that would have the strength to do that. I mean, if a bear done it, I think you would have bite marks. They said there was no bite marks on this person. They just said heavy bruising. So, and we don't know what happened there too. If this is true, which it is true about finding a hunter dead there. These locals have confirmed that. Now, some of the locals said that the game wardens told them the guy had a heart attack. So I don't know how you go from heart attack to killed by an unknown animal with arm torn off. I mean, how a heart attack don't happen with that. Well, maybe it could, but what I'm saying, they're not jiving. So We don't know if that's a cover up. We really just don't know, but so we do know that actually happened. We just don't really know what the true cause of death and what was what. But there's other people been found in there in different places. We witnessed an abandoned camp there several years ago. Y'all witnessed one.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I was in there a few days before y'all came, and I seen the camp in full attack because the person was still there. Because I had went in there with Chris Reinhardt and Adam and Bud from Bud and Angie. We went in there, and because Chris wanted to see this spot while he was here in Alabama. So we rode down there and showed him the spot, and of course we seen the camp.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one thing I'm gonna say, also I noticed whoever this was camping was very littering the place.
Yeah, I saw that.
There was toilet paper everywhere, trash everywhere, and then of course y'all came in, and of course Stacy and them were there that weekend camping. I think Wendell, and found the camp tore to pieces. Metal bent, stuff thrown around, and the guy or whoever they were left stuff. Did he do something to make them mad? And they came in there because they did find footprints there too. I think
Brian, right? Stacy's husband found it was like a 20-something inch print. It was huge, right beside that camp. Right, it was actually I think it was either right at the camp or like on the trail that goes behind it, right there. Yeah.
Either of them people camping made it very mad, or he may have done something that made them mad, or they may have got mad about all that littering. I wouldn't have doubt. If that was my living room and somebody was throwing all that, I wouldn't be happy. But
it was a mess out there. It looked like I was like a homeless camp, kind of like somebody had been living out there, like a homeless encampment is basically what it looked like.
It was definitely strange, but a few years ago we were having an outing, and a bunch of us got there on a Friday, and we noticed a tent by itself way down in the bottom of the campground, and you can still see a cooler, you can see chairs, you can see stuff. So we thought the person that left and went to town to get something or something. So we didn't pay it really no attention that much that day. But later on that night, we noticed nobody never showed back up, which was kind of odd to us that you would, hey, Anna, I hope you done very well. I hope you done well with your surgery. It's good to see you.
Hey, Anna, thank you for being here.
The next day, of course, curiosity got to us a lot. We're looking at an abandoned, or we're looking at a tent, a campsite, with everything there, but no people. So one person kind of walks off down there, kind of starts looking around, and they notice the zippers tore on the tent. They could tell that clothes were all up in there, the food, coolers, everything's left there. But this person comes back up. We had somebody that was at that time in law enforcement that was there with us. Of course, he was off duty, but he was law enforcement. And they told us what they seen. So he decided he'd go down there and look around. Well, so we ended up 6 or 7 of us went down there. And, we was all kind of nervous. Was there a body laying up in that tent or something?
Oh, I know. I was worried too. When I went there, I knew y'all had already gone and investigated this thing. Somebody had. But I was worried that we were going, because they had like a plastic roof, and it was heavy, and it was full of water, but I was worried there was a body up there. Literally, it was creepy. It turned out to be water.
Yeah. Well, this guy that was in law enforcement, he decided to enter the tent, and he went in. He come back out pretty much with a woman's purse, her identification in it.
Oh.
And he said there was women's clothes, children's clothes, There's a makeup kit in there. So we started looking at stuff outside the camp. So I walked over to the cooler and opened the cooler. Well, you could tell the food in it had done spoiled. So we could tell that had been several days by the food being spoiled, the water, there was no ice in it. And, they had stuff in there. And I mean, these people just left everything, camping stove, their water, cheers. I mean, everything was left. So we went and turned it in to the game wardens. Gave the woman's identification to them, all that. And, but that whole weekend, they never came up there while we was there to check that. And it was probably, that tent stayed there another month because I kept going back just to see if they would clean it up or anything. I even went as far as looking for missing persons in our area or anything went on. I could not find nothing. I have no idea what went on. We none of us to this day know what went on with that. It's just strange. It's just like those people just disappeared. Either they got in a car, took off, and said the devil would everything down there. They got that scared. But we don't know. We don't really know. It's just real strange. And it still bothers me to this day. When I go down there, that's one of the first things that pops up in my head. What went on down there? And, we know it was a woman and with kids. There's no doubt about it because of the stuff that was there. What went on there? Did the Bigfoot get to acting up, maybe getting too close, got them shook up, and they took off? Or did something else crazy happen? I mean, we really just don't know. And a friend of mine that does a lot of research, I haven't really talked to him in a long time, but he used to find abandoned camps all over Talladega National Forest, up in the Chocolaca part, around the Cheehaw part, and then down here on our end. He would find a lot of abandoned camps. And of course, we've had people come in and kind of having a cult, I guess you say a cult.
Yes. I know that from a FOIA request. There is they call them a religious cult out there. And they were actually like wanted for disappearances of people and kidnapping and deaths and all that. It was actually they were the ones that actually shot that young man that pulled over to help them fix their car.
He was from Florida, and they shot him, and I think he got a shot off and wounded one of them, and of course the law came, and they started tracking them, found them out. They found out they'd been out there probably 6-7 months. They done had a little commune set up, and come to find out, some of them had warrants from Florida, and so that's why I always tell everybody, when you go researching for Bigfoot, or if you're just going hunting or fishing or riding, pay attention to your surroundings. And I ain't just talking about Bigfoot. I worry more about the human aspect than I do the Bigfoot aspect. So always pay attention. Carry self-protection with you if it's allowed. Watch your surroundings, watch who you're dealing with, where you're going, because you just don't ever know what you're going to run into. And I've had a lot more scary moments with other people in the woods than I ever really had with Bigfoot. I hate to say that. I've had some scary moments with Bigfoot, but the human ones made me a lot more nervous than the Bigfoot did.
Yeah, me too, Mark. I agree with you too. And considering I'm seeing a pattern of some cover-ups going on too. Potentially, this is for entertainment purposes only, everyone. Okay, but you and I got into conversation out when we were talking in person one day, and we were talking about I had gone up to a state park in northeast Georgia, and I got called out for some Bigfoot reports out there, and I don't know if you recall this, but I told the park ranger I wasn't going out there, and I wasn't urgent enough. I guess it wasn't urgent in my opinion to get out there. And he called me one day and was like, "Hey, we've had 9 Bigfoot sightings in our park. We just had a Bigfoot related death last night." and get your team out here now, you know. And I was like, well, dang, okay. So we were out there that weekend, and long story short, what we were told was a heart attack of an older gentleman. We went to the cabin where this guy died. He showed us, and between us getting that and investigating all this for Bigfoot, and then the coroner saying, no, it's actually not what happened. There was a drug overdose, and it was actually a young woman. Like, the whole entire story changed with the coroner. And so we have to be very aware of this. Okay. So like when you go out in the woods, and you're going somewhere that's squatchy, y'all, be sure to tell somebody where you're going. Okay. Yeah. Because something could happen to you, and your death, you could get attacked by something, and then your death is ruled something else. Okay. And I worry about that sometimes, you know. That's why I try not to ever go out there by myself. Okay. And people always know where I am. I always have friends that know where I am, or my family or something.
I'd always say never go by yourself, and have self-protection, and be aware of where you at, what's going on. Now, I go up on Creepy Mountain a lot by myself because I hunt up there. I feel pretty confident up there. One reason we got gates, we can lock them behind us, and we don't really have much problem. But now when I go out where public property is, I pay attention to what's going on more. I probably should pay more at Creepy Mountain, because you never know what you might run in up there. But I feel more confident up there than I do when I get out on public property. So just always be careful. Be prepared for the weather. I've been out Bigfoot before, and storms come up. We had a tornado pop up one time within 2 miles of us, and we really didn't have nowhere to go. I mean, we just had to kind of hunker down, and thank goodness that tornado did not come in our direction, and so you never know what can take place while you're out there. So be prepared to, always have water, some food with you. Like Jessica said, man, please let people know where you're going. Let them know where you're going, what time you might be back. And it does not hurt to do that. You just don't run into.
You don't. And I'm lucky enough to have a bunch of search and rescue friends on my teams and stuff too. But the call would go out if I didn't show up one day or one night and I was supposed to be somewhere. I'd have a whole team of remote viewers and search and rescue folks out there looking for me. I have confidence in thinking that. I hope that would happen. Okay, but that's not always the case, and it's not always the case for everybody. So it's dangerous, Mark.
Now, Bankhead has its share of abandoned camps too. I don't know if Greg told you about that, but me and my son went up to just visit Greg. It's been several years ago, and Greg carried us over to one of the spots where he is having a lot of Bigfoot activity. We decided to ride down there to the river to, old campsite, and we pulled up, and we noticed the tent laying on the ground over there. Didn't think much about it for a minute. Then all of a sudden, we hear some loud crashing racket behind us up the woods. And, me and Greg's looking at each other like, that's odd right there. And but this tent done caught our eye, so we go over and looking at it, and this was a brand new, very expensive tent. These people just left it there, and they left some of their other equipment there too, and it was just odd. And me and Greg, I said, you reckon they got down in here camping? They got run out. He said, that's what I think happened. He said, they left here in a hurry to leave stuff like this laying here. And of course, I know people sometimes abandon stuff. If something happens, maybe a medical emergency, or something happens, and they just leave their stuff. I know they find stuff on the Pinhoti Trail, which is the trail starts here in Alabama and then goes into Georgia and joins the Appalachian. I hear people finding abandoned stuff all the time, and so I'm on one of the Facebook pages about the Pinhoti Trail because I'm watching it for Bigfoot activity pop up, and I have seen some things pop up about Bigfoot on there. So people would talk about, hey, I was camping in this area, and there was stuff going on all night around my tent. sound like people walking around, and so somebody's camping there, and they get to the point they're so scared, they may come out of that tent, go to walking, and just leave everything there. I mean, it's just hard to say.
I've heard some stories about the Pinhoti Trail too, Mark. Lots of I'm talking about ghosts and stuff. People seeing women in white dresses and cloaks and carrying lanterns and like all sorts of weird stuff. And and Bigfoot and Dogman and all that stuff out there around the Pinhoti. So lots of weird stuff out on those trails. I wouldn't go out there hiking by myself ever.
There's a lot of people do it, and there's a lot of people do it and have no issues. But then every now and then, I'll watch somebody make a post on there, and they be, "Hey, I was over here in this area, and there was some weird stuff going on." And we was proud when daylight come because we packed up and left. Now we camped out one time, right off the Pinhoti Trail up toward T-Hall side, and we were camping there at night. We wasn't even Bigfoot. We just went to camp. It was up on a big cliff that a lot of people know about that they camp on, and it's very beautiful up there at night. I mean, you see the stars. You can see the lights from Birmingham, Anniston, just very beautiful. We were camping. Like I said, I went in studying a Bigfoot that night. It's just a regular camp out, have a good time. One of the guys that was camping with us, he had a van that he had set up as a camper because he'd done a lot of traveling. And he got up during the night. I think around 3 a.m. he got up, had to use the restroom, and he hit the Pinhoti Trail and walked down it a little ways. And he said he was there doing his thing, and he got to looking down the trail, and this big figure was standing down there. And of course, he thought it was somebody, a hiker, but in his mind, it was like, man, that's a big old person. And said all of a sudden, he just turned around, walked on down the trail away from him. He knew that I was in the Bigfoot, and the next morning he brought that up to me. He said, "Hey, during the night I had to go to the restroom, and I went down the Pinhoti Trail a little piece." He said, "Does some of the hikers hike at night?" Well, I said, "Well, I've heard some people hike at night, I don't know." I said, "I'd up here on top of this mountain, I don't know if I'd hike at night, so rocky. And some of them cliffs you get around, you might fall off one of them." But I have heard of some people walking. I said, "Wow, did you see somebody last night come through?" He said, "Well, when I was down there using the restroom, I just happened to look on down the trail." And he said, "This big old person was standing down in the trail looking back at me." And he said, just turned around and walks on down the trail. And he said, "Do you think that was a Bigfoot?" I said, "I mean, it's possible. It's very possible. There's been some sightings not far from this area, so that is very possible." So there's no telling what people are seeing on that trail that ain't saying that. There's no telling. I mean, it'd be nice if some of these people would probably open up. We would probably get so many reports we wouldn't probably know what to do with.
Exactly. All you probably got to do is go down there to some of those campsites, go walk around and start asking some people, I guess. But I don't know. It's a cool place in there. I've actually hiked part of the Pinhoti Trail, and it is steep. When you said steep, like I knew exactly what you're talking about. It's steep. Like you got to be careful. It's like one foot in front of the other in some spots where I would. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty rough trail, really. I mean, some of it's pretty easy, and some of it's kind of a rough trail. Back when I was younger, I'd done some hiking on it. We would hike in and camp out and then hike on out. One time we done a 6-mile hike, camp, then we done a 6-mile out. Now that night, this is way before I knew anything about Bigfoot. We made it to a camp shelter that was on top of T-Hall. And it was right there what they call where the Cheneby Trail meets. That campsite is still there, but the building's gone now. But it was a 3-way lean tube, if you know what I'm saying. It had a back, 2 sides, and a top, and a floor in it. We got into a big rain. We went at the wrong time of the year, too. It was August. So it was hot, muggy. I mean, one of them rough days.
Like today.
Yeah, today.
Yeah.
And we had to do a kind of what I call a forced hike because we got there late. And we were having to move ground. We were trying to get to this, to this camping spot. We made it right at dark. I mean, I was toting like an 80-pound pack. I felt like I was back in the military when I done that. And we set up camp. We cooked our supper. We went to bed pretty early. And I remember during the night one time, I kind of woke up and, I thought I heard bipedal walking, and I thought it maybe was another hiker. And I didn't really pay it much attention. I kept listening. Then it kind of went away. And then one of the other guys the next morning brought up, he said, I think somebody was up here checking us out during the night. And I said, well, that's a brave person to walk up here with 4 grown men. Of course, we were all young men at the time in our 20s, but, he's a brave person to walk up and just be, walking around where we was at, not saying nothing, And I wonder a lot of days to this day, maybe that was a Bigfoot slipping up, checking on us to see what we're doing. Then it went on. I don't know.
He wanted to know if y'all were a hunt posse.
So you never know what that was, but that always comes back to my thoughts a lot, especially when I get up around Cheehaw. That always comes back to my thoughts.
Cheehaw is a wonderful place that is Bigfoot friendly. If you go there where you check into the little guard station, where if you want to go hiking, if you want to get a park pass, if you want to go camping out there, put your RV up there. First of all, you go in their little building and it's wall to wall Bigfoot everywhere, and plushies, magnets, T-shirts, umbrellas, whatever. It's all Bigfoot. And then when you go hiking, they've actually got a large Bigfoot statue on top of one of the hills or the mountain up there, and lots of Bigfoot stuff going on up there. They embrace it, Mark.
Right? Yeah, they done several Bigfoot festivals, and Coombo was one of their main speakers several years. I saw when Coombo moved back to Alabama. The ranger at the time, I think the ranger has changed. That was over that stuff. I don't think they had it last year, but actually, Coombo come and done a talk on Bigfoot and done his presentation. I went both times he done it, but like I said, I think the person who was over all that is not there anymore, and I think last year they didn't do it, but I think the person then was wanting to make it bigger. They was wanting to get some more speakers, but I will tell you, they were pushing it more on the, how you would say it, more kid-friendly style of Bigfoot, I guess you would say. They were kind of pushing it more to that side because they did a little hour hike, looking for tracks, and, which I mean, it's cool, don't get me wrong. But I think they were trying to make it more of just to get kids there where parents would bring their kids. That's the way I took it. But now, of course, Coombo was on the serious side of it. So, I mean, but it was cool. I enjoyed it. And several other people came. I think Joe and Pat, they camped out up there. And then there was a few other people came. I don't know if Wendell made it or not. I can't remember. But there was a few other people came and made it. And but what was very cool about it was after Coombo done his presentation, a lot of people left with their kids, but there was a few people standing around and come up and started talking about their experiences, with Bigfoot, telling Coombo, and then, he introduced me to some of them who I was, and they started talking, and then, Lord, there was one right there from Sylacauga started talking to me. And it blew my mind, so it was, it's good to hear. I'm glad the state parks have kind of embraced that, which I know they're trying to draw people in. That's what they're trying to do. But, I mean, it's still a good thing. And I know I think a few of the other national forests are kind of pushing that. LBL ought to jump on that. I don't know why they don't, but the LBL should jump on that.
I think they're opening up to it because I was just up there and they just had a cryptid town hall at the distillery up there. Shout out to Jimmy with the Golden Pond Distillery and the Mike Weatherford show, those guys, and also Martin Groves, big time. And I was up there with Matt, War Criminal, and Barton and Letitia, and I had a great time. And there's some talks of some other stuff going on up there, but I don't know. It's not my place to say anything. Okay. But I think that they are opening up to it a little bit more, I think, as far as the LBL goes. Because, first of all, I had, what was that? The Consul General of Denmark, I think. I don't know. He came to, shout out to the Consul General of Denmark. Thank you for including me in your article. He came to the Molina Bigfoot Festival and he listened to my presentation and he included me in an article that he wrote about how Bigfoot is big business for small towns.
Well,
and it really is.
It is. You look at the Smoky Mountains there, they put on that Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Festival, and I mean, they have tons of people coming, and some of these other areas over the country. Ohio, the state of Ohio has really embraced it, some of their state parks, and even done, documentaries on it, and they ought to, because that would bring the people that's, it's good for the town, but it's also good for the people who have experienced this stuff. It gives them a place to come and talk their experiences and tell about them. And I'm hoping that we have a very good turnout for the one in October, because I would love to hear more from that part of Alabama. And I hope that some people come from that part of Alabama, because I know Lowndes County is a very hot area, because, Mr. Talbanco, I still consider him my mentor in the Bigfoot world. That was one of his favorite places too, was Lowndes County. And he took a lot of reports from that area. And that place, had a lot going on. So I think they're good. They got the big one coming up in Tennessee in a couple of weeks, the Tennessee Wild Man. I know some of my friends or family, from chat and all, going to be there, set up their booths and stuff. I think the Woodwalkers and Chad Harry,
Harley will be there, and Martin, I think, Daryl.
So a lot of people I know will be there. I wish we could come, but I've got to work that weekend. So, so I wish I could, because it's not a bad drive from here. It's about 3 hours from me, so it's not a bad drive. And very beautiful area up in there where it's at. But me and Rebecca did get to go last year, and we really enjoyed it. Just not going to be able to make it this year.
We're going to have to come. Everybody's going to come down to the Alabama event. Come see you in October. Actually, we had Flat Rock in the chat. I don't know if I acknowledged Flat Rock out loud, but I was saying hey to him. Flat Rock Wood Boogers is going to be down there with us as well. Now he lives in an undisclosed location from what I understand, but he's somewhere in Alabama. Okay, somewhere probably not too far from where we're going to be, but I don't know. At Cornwallis, yeah. So I can't wait to see. Flat Rock's always fun to be. First of all, to be around, he's awesome. But he gives a great presentation too, and he has a lot of encounters on his property in Alabama down there. Yeah. He's got some of the best pictures and videos and sounds, and I mean a lot of y'all do out there. Greg's got some good evidence too. Greg House and but Flat Rock's got this. He's got the business, as I like to say. He's got some good evidence.
Down, buddy.
Yeah.
He's got, and it's sad that I have not been to Flat Rock's property yet. I mean, I'm not that far from him, and I need to get down and visit him one weekend. And I hadn't got to see Flat Rock in a while. It's been a while since I've seen him. So I'll be good to see him, and of course Greg and Kumbo and Mark Newble and you and Greg Ogles. I hadn't seen Greg Ogles in a while either, so it'd be good to see all of y'all.
It would
Really
be.
look forward to it. And I guess that will be my first real town hall meeting to do. So I've got to do a little, start preparing for that a little bit. So
Oh, you are not going to have any problems, Mark. You will not have any problems. You got plenty to talk about. And I know people love listening to you in all of your encounters you got out there. I love having you on the show, and I
I
also love
appreciate
having Rebecca here too. And I know Rebecca's got some things she's experienced as well, and she could just be up there with you too. Y'all
I
are
hope she
y'all are
will.
amazing.
She may get shy, so I don't know if she
Yeah,
might get shy and I won't talk about it. She can do good on like this, but you
yeah.
get in front. Then I don't know how I'm gonna act in front of a bunch of people. So when you can actually look out and see them. So I might get tongue tied. I don't know, but I'll sure pray to the Lord to help me through that day. So
We'll all be there with you. Listen, I will not bring any tomatoes to throw at you. I promise. Okay.
I
I'm just
appreciate that.
kidding. You know what? Miss Anna was at the LBL too with us. Miss Anna and Kevin. Okay. And so they were at the Cryptid Town Hall. Thank you, Anna, for being here. I hope you're feeling better. Anna's recovering from a major surgery on her
Yeah,
foot. And I know, Mark, she was part of the prayer group last night. She was part of the prayer list on y'all's video last night. And
I knew she was having surgery, and I should have messaged her and checked on her. I apologize a lot of times. I need to check on people better. And it's not I don't want to. Sometimes I get so busy and just kind of, you know, I hate to say it, flies over my head. And but I like to hear from people how they're doing because that to me that's the biggest thing. I mean, I enjoy talking about Bigfoot. I enjoy going out on campouts, but in the end, it's about the people and the relationships you have with people and making friends and listening to them and uh, I think I met Anna, her husband, one time up at LBL. It was the first time I ever went to LBL, and I think they drove over and hung out with Mr. Barton and Daryl and them. And I didn't really get to talk to them, but I did. We did get to speak. But that's been a good while back. But I hope she does real well with her surgery. And of course, we got other people that's having a lot of troubles. Miss Judy Wheeler and several more that's had a lot going on. And we want to pray for them and hope that the Lord sees fit to heal them. That's what we ask for. And so that's one thing that I really like to keep emphasized on me and her channel is it's about the people. It's about the people, relationships, and making sure everyone, even though we may be 1,000 miles apart, uh, still checking on each other. I'd love to talk to more people if I had more time, and I look forward to when I retire. If I get blessed to retire, I look forward to having more time to talk to people, and maybe me and her, Rebecca, travel more and go visit people and stuff. I look forward to that one day. If it's Lord's will that I get to do that. So,
well, I love it. I love that you guys host. You have your fireside uh, get-togethers and stuff. And I mean, y'all do a lot to bring people together, and I do appreciate that. And I was blessed enough to be invited out to that hunt camp that weekend. I just had the best time. I've made so many friends through that, and just everybody's just good people, wonderful people, and a lot of
yeah,
them are in the chat tonight too. By the way, thank y'all for being here tonight, everybody.
yeah, very good group of people. We do have the fire pit here once a month at the house, and then me and Rebecca tried to do the Christmas dinner. We've done two of them. Yes, they were cold. It was cold.
Oh
But we
yeah,
still had a good time. We had good food, had good fellowship. In fact, this last one we actually had some Bigfoot activity going on during the camp out. We had stuff being thrown in the creek. We were all over singing Christmas songs around a campfire while all of us about froze to death. But we had that stuff splashing in the water behind us. Gary and Miss Robin seen some stuff. So we actually had some activity there at the grist mill. Of course, this grist mill is already a paranormal hotbed. This is where my mother was raised. My grandfather ran that grist mill for years, and my great grandfather and great great grandfather run this place. And this place has a strong history of paranormal, but there's a Bigfoot been seen there, and there's also been a Dogman seen there. The guy who seen the Dogman was at an outing down there we had one time in the Talladega National Forest. I was trying to get to him. I had somebody come up talk to me. I was trying to get to that man, and he just disappeared. I don't know if he left or what, and I couldn't find him. And I've tried to track him down, but we had a little. Everybody around the fire had a moment to speak about if they'd seen a Bigfoot. We gave everybody a chance to tell their sighting or encounter or something they knew. And this guy stood up and he said, "Well, I witnessed a dog man, at the Cuyahoga grist mill." And I mean, it shocked me. Here I am like, whoa, and he told a little bit about it. And of course he, gave time somebody to start talking. And I said, I got to talk to this guy after all this is over with. And I was making my way toward him, and I can't remember, somebody walked up, started talking to me. And I was talking to him for a few minutes. And then when they left, I went to looking for him, and I couldn't find him. So I don't know if he left. I'm assuming he did. But I was really wanting to talk to him about that and see what he, go into his full encounter. And because he just told a little bit about it, then he stopped. And so that's always bugged me that I can't find that fellow. And I asked people all around there, who was he? What was his name? And nobody knew. And that's always kind of bothered me because I would love to talk to him, about that. So,
well, if he's watching the show, please contact Mark or myself, and I'll get you in touch with Mark, okay? Hit me up on my website, and I'll get you in touch with Mark. Or just go to Mark's YouTube channel, okay?
I would love to talk to him. So.
Wow, what are the odds of that, though? Isn't that wild? I mean, there's no coincidences. That man showed up there for a reason. You know what I mean? That's fascinating. I'm glad that he had the courage to even talk about that.
Right. Yeah. He got up. He said, I witnessed what he called me. He said, a dog man at the Cuyahoga grist mill. I was like, whoa, he caught me off guard. And he talked about it a few minutes. Then he said, I'm going to let somebody else go ahead and talk. And I wish I would say, well, tell me your name real quick, or something. But, I should have told him, hey, I'd like to talk to you, after everybody gets done for a minute. That way, maybe he would have stayed around. But maybe one day I'll come back across him. Maybe he'll come across my channel or your channel or somebody else's and decide to start talking about it, I'd love to hear.
Or maybe he'll come to Cornwallis. Okay. Yep. Maybe he'll show up down there.
Maybe he will.
I hope so. Man.
You just never know what you're going to run into, who you're going to run into, and they're going to tell you something about that you already know a little bit of something about, or they give you more. How's the word? Because I don't always believe in coincidences. I believe things sometimes are meant to happen. I don't know what the word is for it, but they give you more evidence than you thought you had. I guess that might be a way to say it. Or they bring forth more than you knew you had, or that you knew, and it just kind of surprises you.
They accentuate what you've already got, basically. They're just, it's adding to the data collection, basically, but it's also stuff that you thought you knew, and now you know. Like, wait, now you don't know that guy at all. He just showed up. That's not a coincidence.
It's not a coincidence.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah, it's your family spot. That's your family's grist mill, you know.
Right.
And
See,
man, that's fascinating. Man, Mark, this has been a fantastic show tonight. I know. Look, we went long last time you were here too, and I'm not going to keep you here all night tonight. I won't. I
okay.
promise. Look, we'll have to do another. We'll do another show in the future. There's so much we could talk about. I mean, we could talk all night about stuff and all these encounters and connect some dots and compare stories and stuff. I mean, it's fantastic. I just absolutely love having you on the show. So thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me on, and anytime you need me, just holler at me. I sure don't. I got still tons of stuff that I ain't even brought up. You know, I mean, there's so much of it that you know, I think it would take years to really talk about it. You know, and it's the new stuff, you know, going on, and I'm paying attention. I know we're getting close to the time of the year when the activities probably fix to start back, stepping up. And I would tell everybody else start paying attention. You know, August, September, those things will probably start climbing a little bit. Probably start hearing some stuff. But we appreciate you, and I need to get you back on with us one Friday night or something. You know.
Oh, I'd love to. You just tell me when. I got Fridays off. Okay. So
Right.
you tell me anytime, Mark. I'll be there. Okay. I'm gonna just have to learn your work schedule so I can know when to ask you to come on. I'm almost. I'm
working a new crazy schedule. There's no doubt about that. So.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's always fun. I always learn so much, and you know, we roam around the same parts, you and I, around Georgia, West Georgia, and East Alabama, and stuff. So it makes the shows even more special, okay, especially for the audience. And our audience, a lot of the people that were in here tonight are actually do some research in those areas as well. Some of them do, and but they're all my friends, everybody, okay. But yeah, it's wonderful. Now, Mark, would you like to tell people about your YouTube channel and what about you and Rebecca's channel and anything else you'd like to promote tonight?
Well, of course, this Cedar Creek Bottoms Farmstead Life on YouTube, and we do have several Facebook pages. One deals more kind of with the farm, and that's Cedar Creek Bottoms Farmstead page. I think how Rebecca's got it. And then we have Cedar Creek Bottoms Farmstead Fireside Chat, where it's kind of more about cryptids or strange stuff or biblical. So that's what we do. And our YouTube, Rebecca's been doing a lot more of it here lately. She's been doing more of the homestead side, you know, sowing of crops and different things, goats, different things going on. I've been kind of, you know, I need to be putting some videos back out, especially from Creepy Mountains, some other areas, but it's just been hard for me to get to some places to do some stuff. But we did do a video today with the cemetery, so that will come out. Y'all will get to see the old cemeteries we went to and some of that stuff. So she'll have a video sometime later this week of some of that. So that'll be pretty cool. Of course, when the farming slows down a little bit, gives me more time to get back out. I'll probably start trying to put some videos back out. But come over and join us. We do a live every Friday night if everything's going okay. And I do have some interviews I got coming up, and just got to get some dates set because I want to get back to interviewing some people and stuff.
Sweet. Well, we'll be tuning in, Mark. We're going to tune in. I'm going to tune in. And y'all, please go over to Cedar Creek Bottoms Farmstead Life on YouTube. And you got a Facebook group too, right, Mark?
Right. There's two. Yeah. One's Fireside Chat. One of them is farm page or something like that. So it's over on Facebook. Just go look it up. And you got a few little questions you got to ask, you know, like a lot of people do. And then, you know, if you answer any questions, we'll let you in. And all I ask is people, no fussing, no fighting. You know.
Good luck with that, Mark. I'm just kidding.
Come in there and be nice. Come in there and be nice, you know.
Oh, behave, everybody. Listen, I have some of the best moderators out there on my channel. So I'm well taken care of over here by my moderators. You guys are the best, by the way. It's good moderators are key, Mark. Okay.
I
When
agree.
it comes to that kind of stuff. And I
I've
can
got
appreciate that.
I've got
Yeah.
and one of them's right in here with you too tonight, Gary. So
Gary.
very good. Gary's very faithful about being there. Good moderator, pays attention. He's a few times that we've had trouble, Gary's come right in there and hey, if you don't act right, you're gone.
He comes in smacking the belt. Remember that? My dad used to do that. He'd take the belt.
But all the other moderators that me and Rebecca have is good, very faithful about being there. Very loyal. So we really appreciate that. And you're right, they're definitely part of the show and help keep things going that sometimes me and Rebecca miss. Something.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. I love it. We had a wonderful chat tonight, by the way. Oh my gosh, the best chat ever. And wonderful moderators and it's wonderful. And I love going into y'all's chats too, Mark. When y'all have your lives on Fridays, y'all have a wonderful chat room and just very welcoming over there. So
I enjoyed it. It's always some seriousness, but also some humor and just talking about everyday life. It ain't always just about Bigfoot. I mean, we talk, and of course, everybody's favorite subject is food, of course. So if we ever get that stirred up, we'll go for a while about food. So, but hey, it needs to be a little mixture. Have a good time.
Heck yeah, we talk about food. People sometimes will put food emojis in the chat because I have 2 daytime shows at lunchtime, basically, and so everybody's hungry. And sometimes I talk about really gross stuff just to gross everybody out. No, I'm just kidding. So because I know they're eating their lunch. No, I'm kidding. But
Yeah, sometimes I get to catch some of your shows during the day. A lot of times I'm at work and I can't really get in chat. I just kind of have to listen. And some of the other folks, that's the way I have to do. A lot of times I'm at work and I'll just listen with my Bluetooth and I don't really get to chat much. They kind of frown on you walking around looking at your phone at work. So
yeah.
You just put it in your pocket, put the ear thing in, and listen.
They never know. They'll never know, Mark. Just keep that earbud in. I have long hair too, so I can cover my earbuds. So I love that. Thank you for being there. It always makes me feel great when I see you in the chat. I always try to make sure I say hey to you when I see you in there. So thank you for that. Yeah. I appreciate your support. And I try to be there to support y'all too. And that's what it's all about. Absolutely. This has been just absolutely fantastic. Please come back and hang out with me again, Mark. And hopefully I'll see you again soon out in the field or somewhere. I'll definitely see you in October.
Yeah,
sure.
Well, we get on up in fall. We'll have some get-togethers and try to do some stuff. Yeah, there's no doubt.
Heck yeah. Everybody, again, go to Cedar Creek Bottoms Farmstead Live over on YouTube and please subscribe over on their channel. And before we go tonight, I want to thank, I didn't get a chance to thank everybody during the show today live, but I wanted to thank, let's see, We Are Not Alone, NC, new member of the Hunt Club. Thank you so much for becoming a member of the Hunt Club. Kent Baxter, thank you so much for the super sticker tonight. You are so awesome. I appreciate your support. And Nathan Davis, thank you so much for the super sticker. I appreciate your support so much. And Blazer, thank you for gifting those 5 Cryptid Huntress memberships over on YouTube. Thank you so much for that. That means the world to me too. And so I appreciate y'all's support so much. And Mark, do you have any final words of advice for our audience tonight? Final words of advice. Anything to leave the audience with? I mean, we've been talking about some wild stuff tonight with all these dogmen and stuff. And, people are looking for answers right now. They're having, encounters and all this kind of stuff. Anything to leave the audience with tonight?
All these conspiracies, we've been thinking conspiracies are coming true. They're becoming truth. And I know a lot of people say, well, they're coming true. What we used to think are conspiracies or didn't exist is here now. So, you have to take it from there and do a lot of your own research. I would say that's a big thing is happening.
Absolutely.
Other
Yeah.
things, love one another and get along. We don't live on this earth long. So, you know.
Exactly. Behave, everybody, like we said, and no fear, y'all. Okay. Well, I don't like people living in fear. You know, I don't know. And get in the
Be
woods.
aware, but don't be fearful.
Right. Exactly. Be aware, but don't live in fear, y'all. And again, thank you so much, Mark, for being here. I really enjoyed this tonight, and I will see you soon. And you guys have a wonderful night. I'll be back on Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern, with a brand new live show for y'all. I promise it'll be fun. Okay, everybody, stay safe out there. Keep your head on a swivel. I'm gonna go put some aloe on my skin burn tonight. I
Yeah.
was tubing all day on the Toccoa River with my kid and all our family and friends. Okay. So I am burning. I'm a hot lobster right now. Okay. And so everybody have a great night. And I will see y'all next time. All right, everybody. See you, Mark. Thanks, y'all.